welcome. Did you like that?
It's good with cream cheese.
Yep.
Very good.
Excellent.
So are we not allowed people in anymore? Or not?
You're live.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get another one of those. Pull out the evaluations.
Oh, it's in our office.
Tell them that for my updates a little bit. So, sure.
Right.
All right, 9 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Vine,
Here.
Commissioner Russell,
Here.
Commissioner Sosolo,
Here.
Commissioner Allgaier, here, Commissioner Walton.
Present.
Present.
We're getting feedback, so Bert can make sure that nothing's near the microphone.
Yeah, move your iPads. If it's close to the microphone, move away, see that makes a difference.
Okay.
Went the wrong way.
Yeah,
No,
there's some,
there.
there, that's better. Thank you.
It's weird that it's one mic.
All right, then, thank you for that. That brings us then to approval of agenda. I don't believe we have any late additions or deletions. Commissioner Solis.
Yes, I would like to offer a late addition. I understand that the health department did not receive the amount of funding from COVID reimbursement funds that they needed for vaccinations and COVID expenses, and are struggling with finances. So I would like to ask our administrator, I'd like to put on the agenda that we explore this need and just simply pass it forward to next Tuesday night's meeting, and then ask our administrator to touch base with Lisa Peacock to see if indeed, in order to complete this vaccination period, if they do need more funding and what that might be possible to take from.
I support that. Okay. Any other questions or statements about that? Okay, so I need a motion then, or
Let's see, my motion would be to ask the county administrator to meet with the chief of the.
no, I'm
No, we're
the
just doing
agenda
agenda.
as a.
I would suggest to put it
I'm
as
so
11D. Put it as 11D.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Sorry, I wasn't clear.
And who seconded that?
We haven't yet,
Russell?
okay, yes. Any other statements or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that will be placed at 11D. Just with the health department. All right, so then that would bring us to public comment. If there's any public comment, please call 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109.
And while we're waiting for a call, I got a letter from a constituent that they asked that I read. Hello, commissioners. A good friend in Benzie County has sent a request to Benzie commissioners suggesting that they adopt a resolution condemning the seditious acts at our nation's capital. I'm requesting that you do the same at your meeting tomorrow night. In addition, I request that you ask Sheriff Borkovich to swear the following oath. As sheriff, I'm prepared to serve a federal arrest warrant on any Michigan citizen who participated in this insurrection. Apparently, at this point, 6 Michigan residents have been identified as participants. While probably none are from Leelanau, I think it would be extremely important that our sheriff go on record as being willing to support the federal authorities' actions, regardless of his or anyone's political or philosophical beliefs. Finally, in sincere hope and confidence that you will take these actions, I ask that you also notify neighboring county commissions of your actions and encourage them to do the same, since seditious activity has also taken place at the Michigan State House. I believe it is extremely important that our county government go on record as having absolutely no tolerance whatsoever for treasonous behavior. Thank you very much for your attention and consideration. Betsy Johnson, Jonathan Corning, Empire.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we have someone on the phone.
Hey, ma'am, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Ellen Red. I'm a resident of Cedar. And I wanted to thank you all for including the anti-racism resolution and anti-bias trainings in your agenda today. I think it's so important that you continue that work. I think it's also really important to note that this board enacted that resolution unanimously last year. And it might have been one of only a few, if not the only resolution that you all had bipartisan support of. And I read the editorial in the Leelanau Enterprise that encouraged you to continue to look beyond your partisanship and to do what is right for this county. And I think that continuing to work on anti-racism and anti-bias training among the county officials, all of the elected officials, employees, everyone who's involved in the county and beyond is so important for this county, both to the residents and to the businesses here, so that people can feel welcome and safe, both living here and visiting here. So I want to thank you for including it on your agenda today, encourage you to continue to include it in your goal setting for the year. And I also want to thank those who are present today who are wearing masks. We are so close to ending the COVID crisis. I can attest, a family member of mine is actually scheduled to have their vaccination because they're 75. And I'm so hopeful that this pandemic can come to a close and we can get back to some form of normalcy. And I'm thankful for those who continue to do what's right to keep each other safe. Because again, we're so close, but we're not there yet. So thank you for wearing masks, and thank you for taking up the anti-racism resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other calls, please call at 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. Hearing none at this point, then we move on to the communications, proclamations, and presentations. Oh, here we go.
Are you calling for public comment? Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy Flanagan, and I also live in Cedar. At the last meeting, the very last comment that was made.
Okay, ma'am, could you turn down your TV or however you're watching it, because there's a delay, so we're getting feedback.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. My name is Nancy Flanagan, and I am also from Cedar. At the last county commission meeting on January 5th, at the very end of the meeting, Commissioner Rushton, in reference to the reading of a land acknowledgement at meetings, asked, has anybody ever thought about who owned the land before the indigenous people? Maybe that's something we ought to look into, quote. The actual definition of indigenous is originating or occurring naturally in a particular place. And 10 minutes of Googling provided this information from Quimby. The history of human activity in Michigan a U.S. state in the Great Lakes, began with settlement of the western Great Lakes region by Native Americans, perhaps as early as 11,000 BC. So for the past 12,000 years, the landmass of Michigan has been occupied by Native Americans. And prior to that, I very much doubt that there was a lot of human concern over platting or ownership. This actually, Commissioner Rushman's question gave us the perfect reason to illustrate why we need to read a land acknowledgement at county commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, if there's any other public comment, please call 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109. So I'd like to move on then to the administrator's update.
All right, thank you. It's a new year, a new month, and every month, every year, there's changes, and we have one coming up here, and this time, like, Ted, could you come up front here, please? Most of you know Ted Club. Ted has been an inspector here for many, many years, and he's about to retire and leave us here shortly. So Ted's one of those people that's behind the scenes, so most of you probably have not worked with him unless you've had a building project. But I've been here for 8.5 years, and I can honestly say I've not had one single call about complaining about Ted, except the fact he wears short pants for 7 months out of the year. Outside of that, though, no, he's done a good job. I think everyone has been pleased, and I found out the more I get to know him, he's got quite the sense of humor. He's kind of the unofficial office jester, I think. Every now and then there's some pranks that come up in the office and so forth, and somehow Ted is always linked with that. So Ted is living in Cedar and has been here. What year did you start? Because I know you've gone back and forth between contracted and employed.
98.
98, so over 20 years, 23 years.
Yep.
And has done a good job. Like I said, we've never had any calls from anyone about Ted's performance, and he's going to be very difficult to replace. So I know all of you know that he's retiring, but I wanted to match a name with a face here. So I gave Ted 45 minutes to give his life story. And he's going to do a little song and dance in here. That's what the office staff told me, but I guess that may be a rumor. So I just want to say thank you, Ted, and I think the board wants to say thank you too for all your efforts.
Thank you very much.
We're going to miss you, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't joking about the shorts. Ted wears shorts, I think, from the first time the sun comes out in March till Thanksgiving. That's pretty close, aren't I?
Yep. Made it to December this year.
Oh, December, okay.
I have one question for Ted. Ted, while you worked in the department, what was your area that you inspected?
Electrical.
Pardon me?
Electrical.
Electrical. Mhm. I'm sure you did mine.
Probably. Yep.
What do you know about this guy over here?
Yeah, give us a review of this.
We're on camera. We don't want to.
It's always been a great pleasure to work with you, Ted. You've had many good suggestions that were helpful for me, and I really have appreciated working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank
For
you.
your service.
And so Ted's looking forward to spending more time with his kids and grandkids.
Yeah, we'll miss you, that's for sure.
Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
And Ted's last day is February 5th, yeah. So job has been posted. We have some applicants coming in.
I have one question. You are one of our employees that did work both as employee and contractual. So would you share with us which you think serves Leelanau County the best?
The best? They both had their pros and they both had their cons, but probably better being an employee. I need the insurance, so
Sure,
That was the main factor.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ted, for coming.
Enjoy.
in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted, and best
Good
of
luck in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Behave.
How do you do? I understand Ted's quite the baker too. He's brought in some treats to the office every now and then. Thanks, Ted. The last 3 years in February, we have honored our first responders. For resolution, we've had coffee and muffins, and obviously we can't do that this year, but I think we still should honor them. We've done the last couple of years. We invited them all to come, and we always had a nice turnout here. But obviously we cannot do that this year, but for next month's agenda, I'll put it on the agenda that we pass a resolution honoring the first responders. And then in past years, we've done a specific one for each of the first responders, and between Matt and I, we have delivered them to each department. So we'll put that on the February agenda. And hopefully we can do that again in 2022. And I think we purchased an ad in the enterprise with our resolution. So we'll put that on the agenda for February.
Chad, I like that, and thank you. And although we can't have them here for coffee and donuts, you could bring donuts for those of us that are in the room, and we could tell stories about them.
Yeah, or maybe a commissioner that has a donut shop in their district could bring in, yeah, like a bakery or something in their district. Well, yeah, we'll take care of that though.
Chocolate eclairs.
Chocolate eclair, okay, I'll put that, chocolate eclair, okay, I made a note. Okay, with the community development block grant, we've been talking about this, and I have an update on that because the deadline for reimbursement, for request for reimbursement was December 31st. As you know, we were notified last summer that we were eligible up to $368,000 for reimbursement for units of government in Leelanau County, as well as nonprofits if they met a certain criteria. We're actually one of the fewer counties in North Michigan that took advantage of this because there was a lot of hoops to jump through, and a lot of counties chose, for whatever reason, not to participate. So we chose to participate, and as of December 31st deadline, we have requests from 7 townships, 4 fire departments, 1 village, and 4 nonprofits for reimbursement, a total of $411,000. So we're going through those now. And I really want to thank Laurel Evans here. So let me just show you, we got our first official authorization for reimbursement for $15,000. That's for the equipment we bought here. Just to get that money, this is the paperwork that had to be submitted. So you can imagine who did all this work. It's Miss Evans there in the corner. So these are all the receipts. This is just for $14,675 for reimbursement. We got this approved, we found out. So we have a lot more of these coming in. But Laurel, thank you for all your efforts. And Michelle, your staff has been great too, because we have to have documentation of every penny that was spent. And from the very beginning, back in March, we met, Michelle and I and Jen, and came up with internal process. So they have been tracking every one of those expenses. So when we needed the receipts, it was quite easy just to go down there, they can print them out and so forth. So Michelle, your staff has done a great job too. So last week I sent an email out to all of the townships and nonprofits and fire departments that are eligible to have them submit their detailed proposals, invoices to us, because it's not required to submit them to state, but we could get audited anytime they could ask for copies. And I don't want to transfer any money from the county to local agencies of government unless we're absolutely sure that we have all the receipts. And they should have them anyway. So we're in that process. So it's been a lot of extra work. And once again, Laurel, thank you very much. And Michelle, let Johanna know too. She's done a great job of doing that. So you will be submitting quite a few of these packages to the state, but I'm confident we'll get the whole $368,000. But part of it is units of government could ask for prior pre-approval before spending the money, which has been a real asset because 4 of our fire departments took advantage of that and got equipment for their ambulances and some other safety precautions. So they knew in advance before they made the purchase whether to get reimbursed or not. And also Matt was very forward-looking and had a proposal that we got approved throughout the state. And I think I sent you a quick email over Christmas break, but I just wanted Matt to give an update on what he asked for and what we have received authorization for. And actually, it's been ordered. So Matt?
Yes. Well, good morning. Hopefully the board gets some good news with this report. Through some hard work by Administrator Janik and Chairman Bunnick, and of course Laurel doing all the paperwork, we're able to take advantage of a nice opportunity in order to expand our 911 capabilities in Leelanau County. Now, this project is on the expensive side, and it's something that we would have wanted to do in the future. But with the opportunity that was presented for us through this funding, we're able to get what they call nomad positions for the next gen 911 telephone system. So we can actually take that equipment into our mobile command vehicle and answer next gen 911 calls the same way that we do inside the dispatch center. So with COVID-19, we had quite a few dispatchers that tested positive for the virus. Unfortunately, with our setup right now, we're not able to evacuate the center and still be able to carry on dispatching. This gives us the capability to dispatch at another location, if for no other reason to fumigate the center. We can put this equipment into our mobile command or another makeshift dispatch center if it needs to be. It could be at a fire department, it could be at township hall, doesn't matter. We can actually answer 911 calls as we would if they're sitting in the dispatch center right now. So this is an excellent, excellent project. And I'm glad that we're able to take care of that.
Matt, could you move the microphone up a little bit?
Oh.
And Matt, when will the equipment arrive?
We will be seeing it in the next month or so. It has been ordered, so they are putting the project together. I'll be working with the project manager in order to implement the system. But these will be go kits, if you will. They'll all be in each individual Pelican case. We can just grab and go. So.
Sure.
And I think you addressed the question I was going to ask. I was going to ask about portability.
Oh, yes.
And so what you're saying to us is you can grab and go, sit in a vehicle, and do dispatch.
Yeah, this gives us the telephone side of it, so we can actually answer the calls in the mobile command or another dispatch center if we needed to. Yeah. And the mobile command already has the radio capabilities, so this is fantastic.
Is it all of the pieces like lien and outstanding warrants, is all of that?
It is not. It's just the telephone side. So when we get the telephone, we can get the GPS location, the mapping system, all of our telephone database. That's all going to be included in that. Now, we do have the capability of implementing our CAD system into the mobile command as well. That will require a safe tie into our server right now. And we're working with Grand Traverse Band in order to have a redundant server so that if one was affected, the other would take over. So we're well on our way to being fully supported outside.
Yeah, I would say that we're well on our way, because that's a very important component when if you're going to be dispatching our deputies out there. We need all of that information.
Yes.
Before we dispatch them out to any situation. And I just want to remark that this was really a second backup, because as it is right now, if we go down here and have to evacuate Grand Traverse County, we can take our calls.
Correct.
We've got that. So this is just another option in case for some reason they're down also.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Great, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt, I'm drawing a blank, but could you tell us what the fire departments received?
Couple different fire departments put in for equipment. Some of it had to do with supplies that they had to respond to COVID patients throughout the pandemic. Suttons Bay Fire was able to put in for that. I know that Leland Fire put in for what they call a Lucas system, which is a CPR compression device, so that, you know, they're able to have that do CPR in the ambulance or on scene, and their EMTs are able to take care of the patient in other ways as well. So it only adds to their patient care, and it's a big ticket item, and I know that they're very happy to have that.
Also, Leelanau Township received a Polycom system. So So Matt, thank you for your research on that topic.
Yeah.
We had the money and we thought time was running out, so Matt did his due diligence, wrote a very nice request. I've submitted it to the state and they approved it. Just in time.
Just in time. Yep. It was fortuitous.
Yes. All right. Matt, you want to talk about the vaccination process? We're getting a lot of calls, at least.
Yeah, I'm sure that everybody's getting a lot of calls. I'm getting a lot of calls. The health department, their online website was down because of all the traffic. So what is going on is that the health department is transitioning to phase 1B. So they are going to be giving the vaccines as they get the supply. Now that is the important thing. Supply is driving this, and the health department is driving how those vaccines are distributed. They have reached out to me and let us know that they will be vaccinating the sheriff's office and fire personnel throughout the county. So the EMTs and the EMS personnel have been able to receive the vaccine. Now they're opening it up to law enforcement, jail division, and the firefighters that have not received the vaccine so far. And as of yesterday, they did contact me and let us know that they are moving on to seniors 65 and older. So I did forward that information on to senior services in case they were not made aware, and just used me as a point of contact. So my next stop is to senior services to discuss that they have this and they're working toward that.
And for the public, the best thing is not to call the health department, is to go online. They have an application form that you fill out. It's pretty simple. I reviewed it yesterday. Name, address, email, phone number, and what category you're eligible for. And then you just press the submit button.
Yes, yeah.
Question on that, and I filled the online out too. I've had a couple of questions about how do we know, once we fill that out, that it's been received and we're on the list? There's no feedback mechanism back saying, got your information, or, so some people keep doing it.
Okay.
Is there a way to find out if you're on a list? Or do you just keep filling out the form? Things like that would create work.
Yeah, I can see the confusion with that. What I'll do is I'll reach out to my counterpart at the health department, the emergency preparedness coordinator, and let her be aware of that. And hopefully they can implement some kind of email or telephone. I don't know if they ask for your email, if that would be a nice and easy way to do it.
They do ask for the email.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Our senior service staff received their vaccination last week because they're delivering food every day almost to our seniors. So they were eligible. They received it beginning of last week. They were the first people who got it. So Matt, thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
We are getting a lot of calls. People, and obviously don't know how government works. They assume that the health department is in this building under our jurisdiction. So we're getting a lot of calls, people asking, we put on the list or how do you sign up? So I think the health department staff is very busy.
Yes, they will be.
Like Matt said, the webpage actually went down for a while because there were too many people trying to log on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if they are receiving both types of vaccination, or are we just receiving one from one of the companies? I think one is Pfizer and the other one is Moderna.
Yeah, I do think they have been receiving both of them. They never know what they're getting until the week before. So they have received the Pfizer. I know that they have been putting that out, but the Moderna is also available. Off the top of my head, I think that some of our employees, they got vaccinated through the tribe. They got the Moderna. I have to assume that the health department's been privy to that disbursement as well.
And so storage, I can't remember which one requires.
The Pfizer needs
The Pfizer
yeah,
requires the
ultra low freezer or whatever.
right. And do they have the capabilities to store that long-term, or not really?
Not necessarily long-term. There are freezer spaces available that they have interagency agreements with. So it would be a regional asset. I don't know exactly where they are. Probably for good reason.
I'm based on phone calls with last week, and I'm certainly not an expert. I understand once it arrives, it has to be used within 5 days. They have some storage capacity, but beyond the 5 days, it loses its effectiveness. So part of the problem is they're not shipping more than they can legitimately use in that time period. Because obviously they want to make sure that every vaccination is used. So it's a tricky situation, it's like complex.
Commissioner Alcoa.
You know, in a presentation that Lisa Peacock gave, she said that when they received the Pfizer from Munson, they put it in their refrigerator. They can do that for 5 days. The packets are opened up in doses of 6. They don't open one of those unless they know they have 6 people who are coming in. She said they haven't had to waste any yet. So they're very, very careful, and they have to be very, very organized.
Commissioner West.
I know it's coming up later in on the agenda, but while you're here, in a presentation I was at on Saturday, it was reported that the health department received only $65,000 of COVID-related money, which was far less than they requested and needed. My question, and I don't know that you can answer it, is that slowing down the process for administering the vaccination?
I don't know if I can speak to that entirely. I know that shouldn't affect their manpower, operational wise. They may not be able to go for, my assumption would be they wouldn't have as long of a work day if they don't have the money to provide for it. So I can see some limitations if they don't have the funding. But yeah, I can't speak to it entirely.
Just a follow-up comment, if that, I mean, that's I think what I hope Mr. Janik will check out, because if we're not getting communications or vaccinations because we don't have the financial resources to make it work, we need to address that somehow.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about that. In the phone calls I've been in, that has not been brought up, but that could be the case. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Following up on that note, I know on the website, there is a request by the health department for volunteers to help them, because there is so much setup and management. And now we're talking about responding back, which could maybe be an automatic thing, but it's another piece of work that you don't want your medical people to, you want them putting shots in arms, but they need the capabilities to cover all of those various pieces. And I know they keep asking for volunteers. I know they're not getting enough staff, enough people that are volunteering. So if anybody wants to help out there, I hope they will log on to the COVID-19 portion of the website and submit their name as a volunteer to help.
All right, one more issue, and this has been a major topic of discussion, not just locally, but statewide, nationally, is the issue of masks. And I'm going to take the personal feelings out of it, strictly talking from a legal perspective. In the past 2 weeks, I've been in numerous calls with county administrators. It's an issue everywhere. I talked to our legal counsel, I talked to our insurance provider, just to make sure we have the facts in terms of the legal responsibilities of masks. So let me start with the public. If people come in this building, we have the right to mandate that they wear a mask. However, we do not have the right to deny them services. What we have done, and we've only had a few cases since we've closed. If a public person comes in here, refuses to wear a mask, we do have masks available. If they still refuse to wear one for whatever reasons coming into the building, we have to provide them service. So the few times we've had that, we've met usually in this room, asked what they wanted, what type of service they wanted, and we proceeded with that. So we do, from a public standpoint, require people to wear masks, and we do provide masks. If they choose not to, or for whatever reason cannot, we still provide them service, and we have not had any case where anyone has not received service because of their reason not to wear a mask. For our employees, we do mandate that they wear masks unless they have a medical procedure. In spring, we passed a policy based on our health insurance provider, our liability insurance and legal counsel. Employees every day has to fill out a sheet, and part of this, they have to wear masks unless they have a medical condition. We did have 2 employees that did have legitimate medical conditions. They brought it in and they were exempt. And so for employees, we do have the right to request them to wear masks. For public officials, township, county board members, this has been a topic everywhere, not just here. You may have seen the situation last month in Grand Traverse County with Township. Based on legal opinion I received last week, based on talking with our insurance provider, as elected officials, you have the right to come to a public board meeting. We cannot mandate that you not come. You can be requested that you wear a mask, but it cannot be mandated, nor can a public official be discriminated from coming to a board meeting. So strictly it's a decision of that individual. Boards cannot pass resolutions requesting or mandating that people wear masks, nor can they request, because this has actually happened statewide in some counties. You cannot mandate that certain commissioners are live and others are remotely. Every commissioner has to make that decision. If you wish to pass any resolutions, they're symbolic only. They do not have legal standing in terms of enforcement. If any citizen feels that anyone is not abiding by state guidelines, they have the right to file a complaint with either the sheriff's department or the prosecutor's office. But we as a board, you as a board, do not have authority to mandate one way or the other. So I just want to clear that out because I know it's been a big topic of discussion here. So that's how we're proceeding with the public, with our employees, and also with all of you from a perspective of a township official, county official, statewide official. It's up to each individual to make that decision how they wish to proceed. So I just want to put that out there. And I'll keep you updated if there's any mandates on that. I think the Michigan Department of Health and Safety issued on that case in Grand Traverse County last week, and you probably saw the article in the Record Eagle, I think it was Sunday's paper, that basically they will not be enforcing a mask mandate because of legal opinions given. So I know it's controversial. I know it's at times become very political, but I'm sticking strictly to the law in terms of what our responsibility is for the public, for our employees, and for you as elected officials. Any questions on that? Okay.
Comment, when I was a principal, I used to ask my teachers to read the book, The Children Are Watching. And I think that's a good message for teachers, and I think it's also a good message for all of us. How we respond to situations that are political or controversial matters a lot to the public that's watching us. And I would urge us all to support whatever we can to be healthy and set a good example.
In addition to that, I think it's a matter of respect for the employees here. When we make a decision, we affect the other people in the room. And I've always been taught to respect the needs of other people as well as my own. And I think we have an obligation to the people who work, the really great people who work in and for this county, to wear masks and keep them safe.
I know I raised this as a commissioner comment at the last meeting, and I appreciate, thank you to our administrator for informing us on mask mandates and how it applies to public employees and visitors in the building. I think it's, as Commissioner Algar said, it is a matter of respect, but it's more than that. The simple act of wearing a mask tells our employees, we care enough about you to do what we're asking you to do. We care about your health and your safety, and we are willing to do the simple thing of wearing a mask when we are in this building around you. And I would just urge my colleagues that that wear a mask into the building but then take it off, to realize that the objective quantifiable data says there is a tremendous protection increase in not spreading COVID germs, both if both people are wearing a mask. And to me, I want our county employees who work so hard on our behalf to know, I care about you and I will wear this mask when I'm in the building because I want to protect you.
All right, and one final update, just following up my email from last week about the airport authority and the legal opinion from Kerry Seitz. And I'll put this on the February agenda. By 1st of March, you have to reappoint people to the airport, or I guess appoint for the first time, airport authority. And so we used to have 2 seats, we now have 3. And so currently it's Commissioner Rushton and Mr. Clement are of the Airport Commission. And so they're recommending, and I'll have more information at the February meeting, that you temporarily reappoint those 2. You actually did that with Commissioner Rushton last Tuesday. And then you have 1 more seat that you have to appoint for the authority. If you look at our application process for the commission, because that's what people were applying for, I believe there was 8 applicants.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, I think there were 8. So I don't know if you want to re-advertise that as their authority, or you just want to review the ones that applied for the airport commission. But you do have to make an appointment by the 1st of March.
And these reappointments, are they going to be following new guidelines?
Well, yeah, but basically it still is up to you to make a decision. As you know, the authority, there's some language in there that should have some background and so forth, but there's no specific, you have to be A, B, C, D. These have to be a county resident, and no more than 45% of the appointees on the entire board can be elected officials.
So then again, no, then,
45% of the 9 people on the airport commission can be elected
regardless
officials.
of which,
Yes, total.
so as a total, that's
Yes,
interesting.
yeah.
So is it imperative that we appoint early, or?
I'll have more information next time.
That seems kind of.
Yeah, I did not realize until this site sent us the email that we had to appoint people by March 1st. I thought it was a long period, we could have dialogue, but Mr. Klein and Mr. Elder, I'm sure we'll have a dialogue to make sure we get in that criteria.
Mhm.
So what they are recommending at this point in February, reappoint your 2 current members to the commission. And then if you wish to appoint them again, appoint them to the authority also. Because for example, last week you appointed Commissioner Rushton to the airport commission, did not appoint her to the airport authority, which is a separate legal entity, or will be. So you have to reappoint those people if you wish them to continue to be serving on them. And there's a meeting coming up, I can't remember the date, Carrie's like said that there'll be a last meeting of the airport commission, then the transition to the airport authority.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So how soon can we appoint to the authority? That's the one by March 1st?
It has to be done by March 1st.
But no beginning?
Pardon me?
No,
No,
not until.
no, the paperwork was filed with the Secretary of State office.
So I would recommend, I'm just saying, not as a motion at this point, because we're not there on the agenda, but that it should be added to the agenda for Tuesday night as a late item to appoint Deborah to the authority then, so that we don't miss the opportunity of having at least one of those elected spots.
Well, and we can do 2 commissioners if you want. I just did the math,
Right.
it comes out to 44%.
Well, as long as they don't,
Very good.
well, but it doesn't,
So I mean, I'm just giving you
as a
that.
whole though, unless
when we
Grand Traverse
decide.
County appoints 6 elected, we're in trouble.
Which I don't think
I
think both boards are trying to be respectful of that.
Yeah. Well, there wouldn't be 6, it would be less than that, but. All
So
right.
actually, of the 9, as you remember, 3 will be from
Yeah.
Leelanau County, 5
And
will be
one
from Grand
outside.
Traverse, and 1 is to be outside the region, which Grand Traverse County Board will appoint.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's a maximum of 4 commissioners. That's the maximum that could be on.
Right.
That's 44% of it.
Let me talk to Mr. Alger and Mr. I don't think Grand Traverse County is planning on appointing 3 commissioners, so. Let me get some more information by next week.
I support Commissioner Lautner's motion to move this forward the next 2 weeks.
Suggested.
Yeah, we're still just in my update, so
Suggested.
I'll just do a late edition next week,
Sure, okay.
once I get more.
Was there anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So then that would bring up the drain commissioner, Mr. Steve Christensen.
Good morning.
See?
I'm Steve Christensen, the Drain Commissioner for Leelanau. I'm here with Brian Sensi, who was zoomed in. He's an engineer from GEI that I've hired to work with me on the drainage districts. And I thought I'd kick off with them and then give Brian a chance to answer questions if need be. There are 4 districts that we are actively involved in to move forward with projects to solve problems. I'll just kind of read through the list. Schaumburg Drain, both Leland and Centerville Townships are affected by this one. It's basically where Schaumburg Road meets 22. Border of Determination meeting was April 23rd, 2019. Necessity was found, so the project could move forward. We're finalizing easements on this. It's been kind of a long process on that. And we're also applying to Eagle and Army Corps for a permit for the project. South Bar Lake Drain, that's Empire Township. Basically the outfall where South Bar Lake empties into Lake Michigan is the issue. We had a board of determination meeting on October 22nd, 2020. Necessity was found so the project could move forward. We're starting the preliminary design process, which will lead us to a scope meeting and then on to the easement process. Timber Lee Drain, Solon and Elmwood Townships are involved in this one. The issue there is the western portion of Timberley Road, which has been a problem over time. We had a board of determination meeting on October 29th, 2020, and necessity was found so the project can move forward. We're starting the title work, which will lead us to the easement process on this one. On the final one, Lake Bluffs Drain, it's in Solon Township. A board of determination meeting was October 29th, 2020, and necessity was found. Lake Bluffs is a development that has been coming apart. The road system has failed. Necessity was found, so project can move forward. We're in the process of gathering input from the landowners. It's a smaller district, a little easier to reach out to people. And we're starting on the easement process. This one has potential to move along the most quickly of all of them. I anticipate at least one of the projects to go out to bids this year, maybe more. And that's it with the current active districts that I'm working with at this point. Open it up for questions for the districts.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. So the Lake Bluffs drain, your Lake Bluffs drain, okay. Will that affect the north side of the road also? So will you be working on north and south sides?
We'll be working on the south side. I'm gonna let Brian maybe fill in a gap there for me, if there's anything that he wants to add.
Really, my question is going to get down to, hi Brian, down to on the north side, there's a vacant lot on the corner there. And I know that there's some issues with that. So I'm really wondering if those issues can be resolved for that lot while we do this all in one fell swoop.
So you're talking like near Fouch Road?
At Fouch and Perrin's Landing?
It's outside the district.
Oh, is it?
Oh, okay.
So that won't be affected at all? So are you east or west then? Is it west, all west then of that?
We're basically like the entire Lake Bluffs subdivision there on the south side of Fouch Road. There is some like common area that's right along the south side, like the southwest and southeast corner of like that road and the inner Fouch, that we will probably have some impact on. But if it may affect the downstream of that, if that's where it ultimately goes to. It kind of goes to the west there and then cuts over to the and comes back to the east and goes into the south end of Lake Leelanau there. So we do have an obligation to make sure that we aren't just passing additional water downstream without mitigating those impacts. So we have to be cognizant of that on any of these projects that we do. We just can't simply, collect more water quicker and faster and send it all downstream. We're just kind of sending the problem downstream too as well. So If it does affect the downstream area, that Lake Bluff where it drains, then we do have to be cognizant of that.
Sure.
And make sure that we're mitigating the water that we do send to that area.
Okay, I appreciate that. So so that being said, then we're also not gonna flood Parker Road anymore than necessary either.
No, that's the big thing with all these projects. It came up on right to the east of that is the Timberlake District. They butt up with Lake Bluffs there, and it's the same type of thing. There's a bunch of issues with that are along Lake Leelanau on that south end there as well, and then that go into it's a big area to the east of there, just north of Fouch Road, kind of where it's the north of Timberlake Hills. And they have flooding problems there already, and that was something that came up in the Board of Determination meeting. What I said is, this would be easy if we just have to collect the stormwater, in a reasonable fashion, send it downstream and not have to worry about what happens to it. But when you already have people flooded downstream, Steve and I have already met with some of those residents to go through some of the things that we can do to mitigate whatever increases in water there are, and offset that with some issues that they already have to take care of, so that we're not making a problem any worse for anybody else when we're doing any of these projects.
So that being said, can that help our situation with the houses we have down on the lake there that also are experiencing water issues?
We'll end up putting less water toward Parker than is happening right now. So we will be addressing a certain amount of that water. Unfortunately, it's not a real large percentage of the water that is affecting Parker. When you look at the map and you look at the streams that all flow into the wetland that's on the east side of Parker, there are 3 main sources that flow into that wetland. And when you have 7 inches of water in less than 24 hours, that water makes it to that wetland. And when you drive down Parker, as you well know, the east side is full of water, and it only has a few spots to get through. And the houses that are on Lake Leelanau there, many of them are very low. They're not built up very high, and the lake fills, the swamp fills, and they get flooded. So it's a real problematic area in and of itself. What we are doing is going to help. We'll put less water on Parker. I would like to say that we could do more, but with what we're doing right now, it's a small amount.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have looked there too. Steve and I met with a resident there that's right on the lake, and I think it's a lot of that water. And I think too, we can install some cross culverts on Parker, because there's really only 2 spots on that entire road, and they're on the north end where water can get across there by means of a culvert. It gets across in several spots. It just fills up because there aren't cross culverts. So we did look at, and it would probably be, we talked to that resident about, we could probably install a couple cross culverts there to the south, closer to Fouch, throughout there. That would make a big difference, I think. But Steve's right. We will be sending a little bit less water there, but it's not a drop in the bucket, but it's a drop in a large glass as far as the difference that it'll make there. The cross culverts will help even more than anything.
Commissioner Allen.
I am very glad to hear that you're addressing culvert issues.
Culvert issues?
Yeah, Little Traverse Lake has a culvert issue.
You're familiar with that one.
I'm kind of familiar with that one. And I'm really happy to know that you are addressing those kinds of issues. The culvert issue on Little Traverse Lake, everyone wanted to see if doing 669 would solve it. It made it a little better, but I am very concerned about people on the lake whose floorboards have rotted, who are having to have mold taken out of their houses, I forget the word, whose yards are flooded pretty regularly even after the 669 culvert, who have sump pumps running in their crawl spaces 100% of the time. Those pumps are not supposed to run 100% of the time. And I've heard two people just say in conversation, boy, when we were on vacation, we came home, the pump had failed. That's untenable. Our road is permanently bumpy, cracked, heaves. We are very concerned about the wells and the septic because the water table comes up and those wells and drain fields were put in assuming water would be a foot lower than it is. It was almost 2 feet higher. I think that covers it. Pumps and crawl spaces, wells and septic. Hello, our drinking water is the most important thing that we need to protect. Our floorboards, our mold, our yards, our road. I'm not sure what else needs to happen, but the situation's been going on for 10, 12 years.
Correct. That's a real problematic situation. The lake level of Little Traverse Lake is directly connected to the lake level of Lime Lake. And if the group on each of those lakes gets together and decides to do a lake level, a court-ordered lake level per se, that would be one option to take. One of the problems that the culvert right at the outfall of Little Traverse has is that when the lake levels are high, you like to pass a lot of water. When the lake levels are low, you'd like to hold some back. So it's a little bit of a situation, kind of like South Bar, but you're going to have you can't just go free flow like they did on 669. The replacement of that culvert probably is a good thing to think about. It may follow a similar route that 669 did. I'm not sure that the lake group wants just a free flow there. I think not. So
I think there are other options.
it's complicated. Lake level, the way 669 went, at this point in time, we've had discussions about it, and lake level would be an issue with those two lakes. And then that last culvert would be part of a lake level situation. It's a quasi dam. You wouldn't want total free flow. You'd want to hold it back when the lake is low, so you wouldn't have an elimination of a lake. So it's a complicated issue. It's not as straightforward as some of the other ones that I'm dealing with at this point in time. But it's a real interesting topic, and it's an important topic, and I'm open for discussions about it. But that's kind of where we are at this point.
I'm glad to hear that you're open to discussion. We need to discuss it because the argument is really, it's easier to get our votes out versus public health. So we know that the lake doesn't go away because prior to the culvert going in the 50s, we had a lake. And of course, we don't need to go back to that, but I know that there are options, and I'm glad to hear you discussing them. So I assume we can continue to do that?
I'm open.
Work orders to do.
I'm open to discussions. There's a process for drainage districts. This one is somewhat complicated in that there are two lake levels that are at issue. We have the Lake Leelanau is a court-ordered lake level, and we have the dam, and I'm on the dam authority for that. Glen Lake is a court-ordered lake level, and I'm on the tech committee for the water sharing plan on that between Glen Lake and Crystal River. So those are both court-ordered. And there's a process that the community can go through to get a court order lake level. What I'm saying in this one is it's not just Little Traverse, it's Little Traverse and Lime that are connected. So it makes it a more complex issue. Lime has a weir that's designated, I believe, as a dam by Eagle, DEQ. And they have documentation, and I've encouraged them to make sure their documentation doesn't disappear, make sure it's safe and somebody always has it, because to have that designation is important. And the weir is a rock weir that is not a bona fide dam that has an up and down control, but it has a certain level. And Little Traverse has the culverts at the far end that create kind of a mini dam situation. So that's kind of the situation going in, and I'll be happy to share more information with you. Other people around Little Traverse have some more of that, but I'm more than happy to share information with you on it.
I know we have a 23-foot weir dumping water into a lake with a 47-inch core.
Commissioner.
So I'm
Alcoy.
glad you're willing to talk. Thank you.
Is there anything else, Steve?
It was a real flooding year. If you know anybody that happens to be near Elmwood Township, they had 3 enormous events and were underwater 3 times, very, very, very severely. County Road Commission is to be commended. They got out and did a lot of ditching, and individuals adjusted their culverts. It's still going on. Lots of really good things happen from some really good folks, and we're still working on it.
Did you work on the issue on Broadway, where they did the water and went across the road and did the trenches all on the south side, or was that done just by the village themselves?
Village stepped up to do that. I presented with Brian to the village with regard to the possibility of doing a drainage district on Broadway. Would have been a smallish district. One of the problems there is that the village and county line runs right through your house there. And so it was who will be in charge and who will pay and who will do what. It has always been the issue there, but as it turned out in our pitch, being able to get the water to go across and into a ditch line is going to be, I think, a total solution. And the village found their way through to go ahead and step up and do it. I'm really glad they did. They should be commended.
Yeah, it's a great job. Now there's the beavers down there on the corner. I think it's Herman Road and Elm Street. And they're building up the water there. Is that going to get you involved in that or not? That creek is getting blocked off by the beaver.
Yeah, I get the calls, and the Trapper Bill did capture one there, and the water's flowing better now. It's an area that attracts beaver, and we'll have to have beaver trapped there on a regular basis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions here? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Then that would bring us then to the Conservation District update.
Can we have a brief 5-minute pause before we go into that? I'm assuming that's Brian.
Okay, we're gonna take a break right now. Usually we do it at 10:30.
I know.
Okay, all right. We'll just
Or
take
I
a-
can.
Sorry, we'll just take a 5-minute break here and be right back.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioner. It's gloomy up there today, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you gotta look at this way. It's January. Well, it looks like March 11th.
I know.
It really does.
Turn down a chance.
Hello. Are we ready to go? Okay. Yeah. And then okay, I see it down here. Just click on that. Yes, I clicked on that. Well, let me minimize this. Leave meeting, no. Let's see. Can you see it now? No? Okay. It looks like we're ready to go. Are you seeing the screen?
There we go.
I put the new board on. The other one's on the counter here. I can't get it to turn on, sorry. This is exactly the same thing. Go ahead, Buzz.
And you can see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, here we go.
Leelanau County, uniquely beautiful and amazingly diverse. From the clear waters of Lake Michigan and picturesque dunes to the forested hills and countrysides dotted with farms and orchards, to the pristine lakes and streams. The Leelanau Conservation District knows there's a lot to love and a lot to protect. Here's District Forester Kama Ross.
The Conservation District's mission is to help our county landowners be the best stewards of all of our natural resources.
The go-to source for natural resource information, the Leelanau Conservation District has been serving county landowners for decades.
The Leelanau Conservation District was organized over 75 years ago to provide information, education, and technical assistance to the landowners of Leelanau County.
We try and take a holistic approach with most everything, which includes soil, wind, water, air, plants, and animals, and the human interaction.
In working with landowners, we provide on-site technical assistance for anything from agriculture to forestry, wildlife habitat, anything that has to do with natural resource protection. We're there to assist the landowners.
In the county, we have over 50% are covered in trees. It's forest. So the forestry part of the services we offer is a really important part to help protect all the other natural resources that we need, the clean air, the clean water.
I called the Leelanau Conservation District because I needed help trying to locate the best forester that we could find and to log this property. I would tell anybody in the county that has a large parcel of land, to be in touch with your district forester. It's very important for the health of your property, but also if you're looking to make a profit.
And you don't have to be a landowner to appreciate the district's wide variety of services.
We sell lots of local food products, including a plat book for Leelanau County, and we have educational programming such as the 5th grade field trip and seedling sales and educational workshops for forestry and planting.
My job here is to make life easier for anybody that needs our services, whether it's soil erosion, whether it's forestry. There's products that we sell.
I help connect people with resources for agriculture, wildlife management practices, invasive plants, forestry, and other conservation measures that they can use on their property at home.
Yeah, everything we do here at the Leelanau Conservation District is focusing on stewardship. We're here to connect the landowners to the technicians and experts that will help them preserve and protect everything that's good in Leelanau, and that includes enforcing the stormwater and soil erosion control ordinance.
I'd recommend anybody that has a steep site not only get their permit, but listen to what they have to tell you, because I mean that's the way you learn. They've done this forever, and I look at them as a mentor.
In addition to providing low-cost native seedlings, shrubs, and ground covers, we also offer a no-till seeder that landowners use to plant hayland, pasture land, orchard floor seedlings, as well as native habitat and wildflower habitat.
A no-till drill for a farm our size, which we're quite small, don't have that many acres, it's a very expensive piece of equipment. And having the conservation district in our backyard is an incredibly valuable partnership for our farm, because we don't have to spend all that money. For a tiny amount of money, we can borrow the no-till drill and we can put in our cover crops and hold on to our soil.
Leelanau Conservation District is a tool that you have to use when you're dealing with steep slopes. It's a must.
Definitely call the Leelanau Conservation District.
Go ahead.
Well, I hope you could all see that, and we contracted with Joe Vandermeulen of Nature Change to do that video for us, kind of a promotional video. I thought it would be good to show it so that at least the new members on the board could see what we do and who we are. With that, I can continue with the update and talk about some of the things we've done in the past year. Thought I'd start out with our seedling sale, which we're gearing up for this year. Last year was kind of different with our with the COVID situation. We were unable to have quite the sale that we wanted. However, it turned out very productive. We serviced over 140 landowners who purchased over 11,000 seedlings. Plus, we had a large sale from the Grand Traverse Band that really brought our spring seedling sale up to par. Again, we're gearing up for that right now, so that information will be going out soon to the public, and we'll start taking orders. One thing we were unable to do this past fall was our 5th grade field day. It's a field day we have been holding at Veronica Valley. We invite all the 5th graders from the county, usually end up with about 150 students there, and run them through 5 different resource stations all in a morning. And obviously we couldn't do that this fall. We're hoping to do it in the spring, but the way things are going, it doesn't look real promising either. As you saw in the video, our no-till drill goes out for rent all during the planting season. Last year, we had about 15 landowners utilize the machine and planted over 400 acres of cover crops and orchard floor plantings, pasture and hayland plantings, etc. The forestry program, we get a grant from the state for our forester. Kama Ross, she covers not only Leelanau County, but Grand Traverse and Benzie counties. Here in Leelanau last year, she was out on over 150 site visits covering about 6,000 acres in the county. She also does referrals to the private consultants. So she doesn't compete with the consultants by doing timber sales and that, but she gives the landowners information on what they have as far as forestry products and what to expect from a consultant. They can do management plans then, and those referrals all go to the private consultants. She had over 60 referrals this year, covering 5,000 acres. And also 50 management plans were done for 4,000 acres. One of the big things that we do, you saw in the video, are the soil erosion permits for the county. For about the fourth year in a row, we hit another record for applications. This year we had 637 applications for soil erosion permits. It was a very trying year with that because probably 30% of those applications were for shoreline erosion projects. So they not only need to get permits through us, which is usually their initial application, but once we see it and it's in the water, then they need an Eagle permit, or if it's on the Great Lakes, they also need Army Corps involvement in that. So it makes it very complicated. And the big issue with us a lot of the times on those issues are access sites. How do they get to the water to place the rock riprap? And many times they have to go through wetlands, and then again, it brings Eagle into it. So it was a very busy year, and but we got through it, and expecting probably a whole lot of the same this coming year. We also work closely with the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network. Their offices are in Traverse City, but they cover Leelanau County also. So they went through some issues with the COVID where much of their money comes from grants and grants from the state, and they had to shut down a lot of that. But fortunately, those are back in action, and so they're back full-time staff and looking to move ahead with new grants in the coming year. One other grant that we did receive this year from the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development was through the Natural Resources Conservation Service, who our Kelly Clare was hired to work. We received the grant. She basically works in Traverse City at the federal office, and but we also receive a benefit as far as administrative costs for that grant, and also when needed, and she's not busy there, we can put her to work out here. So it worked out very well for us. So with that, I think I've about covered any of the updates for now. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Commissioner Locke.
Well, I have more of a comment, Buzz. I didn't know you were going to be doing the video, but I really enjoyed it. I think it really covered kind of thumbnail of everything you do down there. But I really appreciate that, and I hope that it gets viewed a lot.
Yeah, we hope to get a lot of benefit out of that. As you can see, it's on our website. It's also available on YouTube through the Nature Change site. And we were very pleased with the outcome of the video. So, thank you.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I just want to thank you for your work. It's so, so important, and I'm glad you're part of Leelanau County. Thank you.
So thank you. Well, we certainly appreciate the support that we get from the county, no doubt.
Yes, thank you, Buzz. And it was good to see all the faces that worked there. That was nice, part of the video that I liked.
Yeah, a lot of them are really very part-time, a day or two a week, but we got everybody in there, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or statements? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And what we're going to do now then is move on to our action items, and you're on that right away. So.
Sure.
Okay, the first item would be the conservation education and technical assistance. Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of work order number 1, which is the conservation education and technical assistance work order. Do you have this form?
Yeah, it's the.
You want to do them all at one time?
No, it's on page 2. Page 2 of our.
I do not.
It's page 2 of your packet.
Before the work orders. I do, so I will back up. Thank you for that. If I went too far. So I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2021 Conservation District Work Order number 1, Conservation Education and Assistance in amount not to exceed $40,343, and funds to come from 801.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Lautner.
Okay, I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2021 work order number 2, soil erosion and sedimentation control, funds to come from collection of county-approved permit erosion fees.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2021 work order number 3, water quality monitoring in an amount not to exceed $5,000 with funds to come from 801.
Second.
I just had one question. Is this going to be done by the Conservancy as well? Don't they usually do this?
Yes, they do the actual monitoring and submit bills and to us for those up to $5,000. So
So do they? Right. Well, do they check for the E. coli then? Are they the ones who will stay like Nettles Bay is? Or who does that?
No, that's not involved in this monitoring. That would be, well, I know the Watershed Center does some of that. I think the tribe does some of that also. But
Could I ask what water quality, what water is monitored in this by the Conservancy for you?
They monitor all the lakes and many of the streams in the county, basically for invertebrates, nitrates. Well, I don't have it right in front of me, but.
So they just randomly do it all over the county every year?
Yes, they have specific sites that they go to every year, and they've been doing it for probably over 20 years, so that we have very good records of what's happening in the lakes and streams.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Were there any other questions here for us? Seeing none, thank you very much. We really appreciate it, especially the video. Good luck this year.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to the Leelanau County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
I believe it's there he is. Commissioner Rushton.
I would move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners transfer ownership of Nico to Deputy Greg Corporal upon Nico's retirement from the LCSO K-9 unit, with Deputy Corporal assuming responsibility for the cost of care at a cost not to exceed $1. I'm sorry, how many seconds?
I said, I gladly second. Does that count?
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to separate our dog from its owner.
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign.
Congratulations
Yeah,
to
the
the
motion
father.
passes 7-0.
Thank you.
For giving him a home.
Yeah.
No problem.
Then we have the Advanced Correctional Healthcare Contract renewal. Commissioner Rushton.
I would move to recommend we approve a 3-year contract with Advanced Correction Healthcare for inmate medical services in the amount of $40,901.72, pending review and approval from corporate counsel and of course our board chair will sign.
Work.
How are you? Good.
Commissioner Alexander.
I'm just wondering what do they do? What support? Is this medical, psychological?
This is strictly medical. They're basically the medical authority for the inmates. Anytime an inmate comes in, they basically take over all their medical care for us.
Does anyone do psychological
Community mental health?
support? Okay.
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
Do when the tribe members come in, we have that contract with them, are we still responsible for their medical too?
Our medical authority sees them. The only additional cost to the tribe is the medications themselves. That's the only thing additional we bill the tribe is the medication. We take care of, we just absorb the cost, if you will, of seeing the inmate themselves.
So if it was a dental or something else, then we would take care of that cost.
Well, if it was a dental or something like that, yes, we would then bill the tribe for whatever that additional cost was. And that's pretty infrequent, but
Right.
yeah.
Not this one. Any other questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Yes.
Just bring up that the grant service band attorneys have contacted us and they want to renegotiate the contract, which we will include the board and Chet, everybody together. But they feel like they're being overbilled now. We basically have 10 beds reserved for them. We've averaged probably 6 or 7, so it's probably a reasonable request. But part of that, as the lieutenant said, is going to be involving medical. And that's a slippery slope on medical that we don't end up, paying for something in this way. So we'll have to open that back up. And I think it's reasonable. We have right along, at least since I've been sheriff, I don't know, before that, was it 10?
Yes, it's been 10 since
So
it started.
It's been 10. Overall inmate numbers are down because judges aren't sentencing as much, but that is coming up for a future board meeting to answer that question. And I just.
Thank you.
For you.
Thanks,
Did
Ed.
find one.
Yes.
It's been 10. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's a long time. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So then that brings us up to 2021 board goals. We just passed out the sheet.
Last week we talked about that. The directive was to submit potential goals to me. So those are the ones I received through yesterday afternoon. I don't think I received any more since that time.
They are on both sides.
That was take some paper.
Right, no, just so they know.
Yeah.
Mr. Wesson.
Yeah, I'm not sure what process we're going to use to move forward. As I shared last week, I think this is a critical topic for us to take a look at, and I would urge us to set aside a separate session to spend just on goals, and I'd like to do that within the next month or so.
Commissioner Lochner.
As I said last month, as we're elected, we have our constitutionally directed direction. We have our goals, our duties, our responsibilities. And on top of that, we also run for what might be more obvious extra things that we will work hard for. We promise our constituents that we will work hard for on behalf of the county. So that is why I have been opposed in the past to the board setting goals that are not going to, may not be something one commissioner wants to work hard towards, or maybe just doesn't feel is in the best interest of a certain segment. So I would make a motion that for 2021 that the board does not adopt goals as a whole.
I'll support that.
We have a support.
And to further that, I would say that we would work hard to bring to this board the direction we want to bring forward. For example, I sit on recycling and I sit on Housing Action Committee. So there are some direction that will come from those boards that I would bring to this board, and I will fight, for and fight hard for. A lot of these things we are already doing, or we're already in the process of doing. So I do not see this board not going forward with things we have already started or we have committed to. So I don't think it's necessary to do board goals, and that's my thoughts.
Any other comments? Commissioner Weston.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't even know how to respond. As I said last week, every board, every organization, every school district I've been a part of has goals. Absent goals, we're just running around in circles. I don't think it's a question about whether we have goals or we don't have goals. I think it's a question about what are our goals going to be. For sure, this board has a goal around the anti-racism issue because you all signed on to it. You committed to accomplish 4 things. So we need to have a goal on that. Melinda and I met with the Housing Action Committee yesterday, and we talked about our goals for a Housing Action Committee. Certainly, if she's representing the commission on that, and I'm representing the commission on that, we ought to talk about housing goals. We're spending money on our substance abuse coalition. We're paying out a consultant for that. Are we not going to have goals around that? I can't argue loudly enough that we must have goals. And I certainly will speak against or vote no to the motion that's on the floor.
Commissioner Malcolm.
I believe my constituents elected me to be proactive for them rather than reactive. Again, if we have no goals, we have no direction. I don't want to just react to things that happen. I totally support goals on housing. I think all of us agree that is an issue that we can do something about. we've committed to do something, to certain commitments with the anti-bias legislation. If we have 4 or 5 things that we have all committed to, and that is our goal, it provides movement and direction. And again, no, I've never been part of an effective organization that had no goals.
Any other comments? Commissioner?
I agree with you, Todd. Yeah, we do need goals, but we gotta be careful. Goals are for voters, agendas for special interest groups. So we gotta make sure that our goals are for the voters, not just for a special interest group. I kind of did the math after last week's meeting, and I remember the administrator saying only 4 or 5 goals. Well, there's 7 of us. I looked at your sheet, you have like 5 or 6. We only have like 12 meetings a year. So how are we as a group going to come together to figure out what goals we're going to have? Because we all have different goals. So that'd be my question to the board, is I'm not against the goals. It's just how are we going to determine what goals we're going to pursue? And another thing you got to look at too, we're only elected for 2 years. My first year, I'm trying to learn the job. I really don't have any goals right now, other than being a good commissioner. In year 2, I'll start my goals. But, I mean, like I said, we only got 12 meetings, and I look at this list here, and one has 7, one has 6, and, I mean, I don't think there's enough meetings in a year to, so, I mean, as a group, we'd have to sit down and figure out what are we gonna work on as a group. That's my input on it.
Commissioner Soto.
I think Commissioner Robbins raises some very good points. And we do have special meetings which get called from time to time on any of these issues that we want to go in depth with. But your point is well taken. We should take from this list those goals where we all have agreement, i.e., we all agree on internet. I don't know about you, but I get calls and emails on this weekly. In fact, at the beginning of the break during this meeting, I just answered a text from a constituent who said, when are we going to have some solutions on this issue? You know, we're working hard. In my goals, my goals for us, I tried to pick those things that I knew we had agreement on. And in talking with staff and organizations, identified the things that were coming up as specific things that we could do, just to move it forward to make sure we do. But I agree, you know, we need to pick those things that we can actually commit to. And hopefully that's what this morning is for. So I would definitely say we should have internet on the list, septic on the list, and a bias on the list, because those 3 things are 3 things we've talked about. And housing, 4.
Commissioner Watson.
Yeah, and I do not deny that we can't have 21 goals. I thought the exercise that we were asked to participate in is we were all to submit our 5 or 6 goals. And then we've had discussion amongst all of us on what we want to adopt as our 5 or 6 goals. So I also see a lot of overlap. There aren't 21 goals on this sheet, there are 4 or 5 on this sheet. I don't believe there's anything on this list we couldn't make a difference on if we established a goal and unanimously work toward it. But I still would urge us, let's put on the table what each of us believes is most important for this county. And then let's have a session and see if there are 4 or 5 of those goals we can get behind unanimously and make a difference on, and make an impact on. And if there's only 1 or 2 commissioners that are behind one of my goals on this list, it shouldn't be on the list, it should come off. But all I'm asking for is let's have a session where we talk about our best hopes for things we might do to address the needs that our constituents have.
Commissioner Russell.
One thing I'd like to point out, you know, on some of these goals that have been listed, We already have a committee or a commission that's working on these, some of these specific issues. And typically what I see that is most effective is when these core groups work and they have their ideas and they bring it to the board for further discussion. I don't know why we think we need to go out there and usurp the work that these boards are already doing, or it just appears to be redundant to me. So let the Housing Commission do their work. As far as zoning, so on and so forth, zoning is really not mandated by county commission, mandated by local townships. If the townships have certain needs as far as structuring their zoning, they have resources that they can reach out to help them in their zoning process. A lot of things in here to me are redundant as far as this board overseeing or getting involved, or they should be doing their own work and bringing that work to us, making recommendations to us. We have individual commissioners around each one of these boards that have input that can keep the rest of the board informed on, the direction that they're moving in. We've asked last week for minutes of those boards so that we can stay tuned in to the direction of those boards. But, I mean, expand the role for planning commission and the board of commissioners to have more influence in development, zoning, and long-range planning. Well, that's really why we appointed the planning commission. So it's just my 2 cents for the moment. I don't disagree with Patricia. I think the broadband project is something, but there again, Lyft has been working on that for quite some time. They've made some recommendations to this board, and that's the way I think the process should work. I don't disagree with Melinda. As far as having all these goals out there, and just, when you don't have a consensus on something, it makes it very challenging, and it just sets up division between this board. And I don't think that's good for us moving forward.
Mr. Locke.
If we can't,
I'm sorry.
if we can't agree on goals, moving forward, I don't want to see that division start with this board for the next year or two. Let our groups do their work, let them make recommendations to us. And then if we need to have special meetings and further discussing on, the research that they've done, then that gives us an opportunity to weigh in, change course, so on and so forth. So thank you for the time.
Commissioner Locke.
Yeah, actually, Deborah brought up a point that I wanted to reiterate, is that redundancy was a good word, but as I said earlier, we are already have acted or are acting on, I think, everything here that's been suggested. So to put it in a goal is just, that in itself is redundancy. We also talked about the goals being unanimous. So all it takes is just for one person to say no to to all of them, and we don't have goals as quote unquote a board. Now, I have sat on boards, very successful boards that don't have goals, and yet are very successful. In fact, this board is one of them, because until I think only 6 or 7 years ago, we didn't set goals. We know what our goals are. We have those. We run on them. We do them. So unless a goal would be unanimous, which I do not see them going, there's just no sense in beating a dead horse. My final comment is Deborah's absolutely right. If you want to create division on the board, try to set goals because it's, they are just agendas. And I agree with Rick. I didn't come to this board with agendas. Came with my own goals I will work for. Thank you.
Commissioner Elder.
You know, the agenda that I came with was the one that I heard from my constituents. And when I talked with them, they said, yes, please. And I have I just have an observation. It sure seems like the Housing Action Committee and the broadband lift, those started with goals. They were created because of our goals. So that's usually what starts the direction, and I am very heartened that this board supported those things because our constituents need those things. So having goals to continue to support them in any way we can and represent the needs of the people of Leelanau County, I believe is very important.
Commissioner West.
I remember in 2016, when we first began talking about housing, and we established a housing committee. And it met in this room, and the protesters did not have enough room in this building to stand in line to tell us we shouldn't be addressing housing. The meetings were vicious. This board got behind housing. And I don't hear anybody anymore say we don't need to address the housing issue. The Housing Action Committee has a number of ideas, I think, that can help address that. We have some very successful efforts in the county, and it's because this board got behind it. And I believe everyone here campaigned on the issue of housing. And I believe everybody here campaigned on the issue of broadband. And you made those comments in your debates and your presentations and your campaign literature. Things only happen if you focus on them and move forward on them. And a Housing Action Committee or a Solid Waste Council or a Planning Commission can't do anything if they don't sense that we support what they're doing. I think it's critical that we have 4 or 5 goals. And let me revise that, if we don't have unanimous support for them, at least a big majority for them. Because maybe if somebody doesn't want any goals, they're not going to step out and adopt. They're not going to vote for anybody. But I think most of us have 4 or 5 that we could jump on and make a difference on. So I'd like us to reconsider voting on the motion that's on the floor.
Like I said, I'm a new kid on the block. I probably have a lot to learn. I'm going over this list here. I looked at, there's 3 commissioners here that wrote in, and I kind of know what the other 3, where they're headed. And I don't know what we're fighting over. I mean, this doesn't need to be a tennis match. Look at all your goals here, and I think majority of us, there's 4 or 5 on there that we all kind of agree on. I think we need to finish them up before we move forward on something else. I mean, how many years have we been working on the septic? Is that a goal or is that a career? You know, it needs to move forward. Same with the anti-racism, all these things, just, you know, like I said, there's 4 or 5 on here that the 3 of you put. I think it's the same goals we have. We just gotta stop bickering back and forth and move forward and get them off the plate.
Any other statements?
And I think that's what our goals are, just stating, these are priorities we're going to continue working on. These are things that the county commission supports. That's it. And then we keep working.
Okay, so we have go ahead.
I think, Rick, you bring up a very good point. And our point is, we're going to do that. without doing a goal. We don't have to do it under the title of a goal. We're going to do those things. So that's my point. It doesn't have to be attendance match. We just don't need to do these things by putting them under the title of goals. And that's what I'm trying to say.
Any other comments? All right, so everybody understands the motion on the floor is basically no goals.
Would you read the motion again, please?
Sir.
Motion by Lautner that for 2021, the board does not adopt goals as a whole, seconded by Rushton.
Okay, we'll just have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Storsville,
No.
Commissioner Wessel,
No.
Commissioner Alguer,
No.
Chairman Bonick,
Yes.
4-1 passes, or 4-3, sorry.
All right, so then we will move on then to the review of the anti-bias resolution. Commissioner West.
Yeah, I was glad it was included, and I was hoping that it would be covered in our past agenda item, because I don't think it's something we can solve today or spend a lot of time on today, because I think it's something we must work on. But the resolution is in our packet, and we committed to doing at least 3 things, really 4, but the 4th one was just a communication. But I think that we need to pull that out and have a plan for each of those 3 commitments. And I'm not suggesting that we can do that today, because I don't think this is something we ought to approach in a contentious matter like we did. And I remember the discussion we had in November, and I don't think we make progress on something if we don't talk about it and reflect on it and work carefully toward it. But we did say that we were going to advocate for equality, equity, and improving the quality of life and health of our residents. And I think we do that, but I think that to me is a goal, but if we don't want goal, it's still something we ought to focus on. We also committed to assessing policies and procedures. I think we need a plan to do that. And most importantly, it said that we're going to have professional development programming to support the purposes of this resolution. And I do know that discussions around race oftentimes are difficult and oftentimes aren't productive, and sometimes we move backward. But I believe that we could slowly move toward learning more and slowly move to working together to address this. So I don't have a recommendation beyond that. It ought to be on our agenda every month until we have a plan for our commitment. And I'll stop there and let other people talk.
Commissioner Rush.
I'm going to ask the question again of our administrator. Did we not review our internal policies and procedures to ensure that we were in compliance with all of these regulations?
I believe in 2017 and 2018, we along our lead council reviewed every one of our policies and updated them. And some of them we kept the same, and some we brought to you with changes.
Okay.
The question is, are we in compliance with all federal, state laws? The answer is yes.
Okay. So I think that we, at this point, have fulfilled that responsibility. And my next question is, where do we find that Leelanau County is not advocating in the first therefore? Do we have any specific problems that need to come before this board because somebody that works for us or who has applied to work for us has not been, has been mistreated? Do we have a problem in the county? If we have a problem in the county, that needs to be on the table today. So we're trying to fix problems we don't have if we don't have the complaints. Is that what we're trying to do?
I don't agree with that statement.
Well, do we have a problem in the county? Do we have a problem with our workers as employers? Have you had any complaints, Chuck?
In terms of discrimination,
Yes,
we had one several years ago and it was investigated
it was investigated.
and it was reported to.
So I'm just saying, why are we creating a problem that we don't have? I'll relinquish the floor.
Commissioner Lau.
I don't think we're the ones to ask. I think we need to ask our first peoples. I think we have to ask people of color. And we have to find out if they have experienced or are aware of those issues in their lives in Leelanau County. So we can't make a blanket statement just because we haven't received a complaint. I think that's something we have to be aware that maybe we don't know what we don't know. And that's pretty obviously true. We've heard a lot from the First Peoples that that is the case. And I think it's our duty to become more knowledgeable and investigate that and be open to what we find out.
I was serious about not wanting to have a lengthy discussion that turns into contentious disagreement. I think there are people in this county that think we have a problem. I think we have a workforce in the county that looks pretty much like all of us. I know we've got 50% of our county that's struggling economically. I know we've got a third of our students that are drastically behind in their assessments. Some of it's race, some of it's social economic, but there are some things we could do. And all we have to do is look at what's the rhetoric in our nation. And we know that there's some things that we could do to improve the lot of everybody. And we're only one county, but I was thinking after I watched Wednesday's terrible events that I know all of us thought were terrible. But just think if every local leader, every county commissioner, every township trustee would speak out about civility, would speak out about respect, would speak out about caring for our neighbors. And that's all this is asking us to do. And I would welcome an opportunity to sit down with, you picked them, a number of our residents and just say, we don't know if we really have a problem. What do you think? Are there any issues we ought to talk about? But I would think that there are a few things we could do that would be good and helpful. But I think the worst thing we could do is fight about it. And I don't want to do that. And I certainly don't want to bully, Mr. Chair.
I agree, we shouldn't be fighting about it. I've followed this since August. And there's only so much that we can do as a board. And I think we all agree there's an issue. And I think it's time that, I don't know if it can be done, but it needs to go outside this board. It needs to go out in public. How come no one suggests, starting a task force out there, see what the problem is. Sign a commissioner to it. There's what, 5, 6 high schools here. get a representative from the high school, get somebody from the sheriff department, the tribal police. Whoever wants to be on the board, you guys meet and see if there is a problem and go from there. You know, we're just fighting back and forth. I mean, we all agree, but it's time you leave this chamber, you gotta go out in the community and see what they want.
Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you, Bob. Rick, you just touched on what I was sitting here thinking, because it makes no sense to just come up here and just keep beating this to death. There is no one who isn't behind it. As Deborah said, I have never encountered one single issue in this. I don't tend to think about our employees of what their race is. Never crossed my mind. But as I'm racking my brain thinking back, we've had some. And I just don't think, we're all same peoples. So to try to divide all that out is alarming to me. And this is just something we have to live, not just something we have to come up here and say. It doesn't make any sense to just keep beating it up here. I have personally spoke to all my friends that are minorities, and they didn't see any point to this at all. It's just a way to just keep beating something over the head. As far as training goes, there's a lot of different channels that we can and probably should be doing with trainings. I have absolutely no problem with that. I think we have to be careful with our speakers. I don't think we want any one particular race to leave a training and feeling like they have never been more hated in their life. I don't think that's very positive. And so I think that we have to be careful with that. And that's the only thing I can, if you want to continue trainings and offer trainings, I have no problem with that. But the rest, that's up to us. It's up to all of us.
Commissioner Otto.
I think continued trainings is one of the things that this board committed to. I think a task force is an excellent idea. So if the board is willing to commit to continued trainings, both for the board and for staff, to have a task force to suggest any other needed action, I would definitely support that. This board does need to follow through on the commitment that we made and you all signed.
Any other comments?
I guess I want to touch on the training part that I didn't say earlier. Is being a former government employee, sure, I've been retired for 20 years. We had this training back 25, 30 years ago. So it shouldn't be something new. I'm not sure what goes on in this county, maybe check in. I think every new employee probably should get a handbook on it. I'm sure the sheriff department to get training, I'm hoping yearly on it. And as far as us getting training, I'm not against us getting training, but I am against having a speaker coming in here, just talking to the 7 of us. What I would like to see is the 7 of us, when each county department has their yearly training on it, we sat in on with the employees. They get to know us and we get to know them. So that's my take on it.
I think Commissioner Robbins has made 2 excellent suggestions. And I'm wondering if you want to offer a motion on task force. Let's get it started. I agree with you. Let's move it out of this chamber. Let's do something about it. Quit talking about it.
May I ask, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I heard Mr. Robbins speak, Commissioner Robbins speak about a task force. Did you intend for us to start that, or did you intend for the community to do that?
That's a tough question. I mean, I would like to see both. And
Combination?
a combination. I mean, I don't know if there's a commissioner that would want to sit on it. I'm sure there is. And and find somebody on the outside that, I'm sure there's been enough people call in and talk to us. Maybe start something up. I mean, it's gonna have to include everything. I mean, just, yeah, you look at your main targets here, where you're gonna see racism is either next door to sheriff department, which I haven't seen any complaint in quite a while, or I don't remember the last complaint. We have 4 or 3 Native Americans working over there now, so they're some of our best officers over there, so they're working back and forth. And the other section is the school system, between teachers or coaches or whatever, or the kids bullying, that's probably where you're gonna see it. So that's why I suggest that, you need somebody from law enforcement, you need somebody from each school to be on the task force if it's gonna work.
Well, I have.
Go ahead.
I would ask that our chairman and Mr. Janik put their head together, talk to any of us that they want to talk to, and come back to this group with a recommendation that we can make a decision on. I think you've heard the comments that everybody's had. I think we have some diverse views. I think we're ways away on some things and close on others. I think we need to have a recommendation to support or amend or discard. And I don't think we're prepared to take action today, but if you, Mr. Chair, and you, Mr. Janik, would be willing to do that, if that makes sense, I think we need a recommendation.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none then, we'll move on to the 2021 Board Rules of Order and Procedures.
Sorry, I didn't mean that just to die, because I don't want it to come back up on the agenda, and I sense, I mean, I heard Deb speak to that, I heard Melinda speak to that, and I heard Rick speak to that we keep bringing up the same old stuff, and I don't want to do that. So could I make a motion? I make a motion that we have Mr. Janik work with a couple of commissioners that you and Mr. Bunnick agree you'd like some input, and come back with a recommendation for moving forward. That's my motion.
Next step. Did you want to speak to that? Did you want to, Commissioner Long?
I'd like to offer an amendment to that motion that to add, to come back with trying to help me out, I'm trying to think of what I'm looking for. The direction for this task force. So in other words, what is this task force going to do? I want to see what its direction is. So I would just offer that amendment that whatever comes back to this board, it's got the task force direction.
So let me make sure we understand. So the original motion is to just come up back with something that we think is worthwhile, and you want it to be towards a task force as that's what it would come back for, with a mission statement or something?
Exactly.
Objectives, what the task force goal is, that's what you're.
That's what I think we need to look at. I mean, we didn't know what it's going to be. How, and direction.
Okay, so does everyone understand that?
I'm gonna have to have that restated because it's not written down.
Okay.
I don't want to rephrase it.
Yeah.
I didn't really hear what she said.
She wants to know exact wording for the amendment part of the motion, but I don't have the motion in front of me either, so I can't, I don't know where it would slip in. But somewhere slip it in there that to also come back with the direction of the task force. It's objectives, it's direction.
Does that help you at all?
She's looking for
The
what the goal
purpose.
of the task force is gonna be.
Right.
Are you looking for the purpose, to state the purpose?
More like, we're gonna decide. I'd like to see something a little bit more complete, like who,
Maybe I can summarize. I think what you're saying is form a task force and develop next steps. The task force develop next steps, bring us back to the board.
yeah, I wanna make sure that it's going where we want.
So
it
not
to
just
go.
form a task force,
Right.
but come up with a plan for the task
What's it
force.
going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, how is it going to do it? Yeah,
Chair,
with next.
I'll withdraw my motion and support that as the main motion.
Well,
There wasn't a
Then-
second to her.
right, there hasn't, I think, I don't think anybody seconded it at this point, so,
I don't think we got to that point yet.
right.
And I will second it. And with that said, I don't believe that the motion maker can withdraw at this point without a vote.
Commissioner Al,
Me? No, I'm just got my hand up.
oh, well, okay.
I just want to be sure I understand. The first motion was more open in the sense of soliciting ideas from different commissioners and bringing those ideas back for the board to discuss and decide on which direction they want. The amendment is in lieu of that to form a task force and to specify the intent, direction, outcome, however you want to phrase it, of that task force to be considered. I'm trying to figure out, voting on the second one eliminates the first, I believe.
Could we hear the first motion, because maybe I thought the motion was more direct. So what is the motion exactly?
The first motion, by Commissioner Russell. Just let me find it. Motion by Wessel that to recommend to the Leelanau County Commissioners that we have the administrator work with a couple of commissioners that you, the administrator, and Mr. Bonick agree, and come back with a recommendation moving forward.
That is very open. I guess that's what I was wondering about, when it says, what was the last word?
It's to come back with a recommendation moving forward.
Okay, so for the recommendation to move forward, that's what I was thinking, that's what I was looking for, to move forward, how? That's what I was looking for, the direction. So if it's more open, that what I heard you say is everybody tells him where he wants his task force to go, that's a little bit different than just working with a couple of commissioners and coming up with a recommendation for us. So I don't think it needs to be, I just kind of want to know, I'm trying to remember back exactly what Rick was saying about finding some other organizations, and Rick said some other things. So that's what I was looking for. I want that to be the direction. And it was an earlier statement, so.
So you're sticking with your amendment?
No, I will withdraw my amendment.
Second.
I would ask now for a clarification of what that recommendation is going to be. Is that recommendation going to come back to have a task force, to not have a task force, how big it's going to be? What is the intent is all I need to know about the motion.
Commissioner Alguer.
I think it's important not to put it in a box before we find out what it is. I think the point is that we don't know what needs to be dealt with, and that's what the task force is all about. So we have to be careful and not create a box for something we don't know the size and shape of.
Commissioner West.
And I purposely made it pretty open because I saw Mr. Janik and Mr. Bunnick being able to talk to each one of us and then come back with a recommendation. It may not even be a task force. It may be something else. But I was hoping that we might get something very concrete that we all support that would move us forward on this. And it was not specifically task force. It was come back with a recommendation, please.
Commissioner Long.
I guess that's my concern, because I don't want to see a document placed on this desk that 5 commissioners or 2 commissioners or 1 commissioner can't support. So by putting it in a document in print placed before us, and suddenly we say, wow, you know, if you don't go along with this, then you're a horrible person or whatever. I want it to be, that's why I was asking for the direction. So I would further amend this motion then to say explore. I think it's the chair and the administrator to explore this task force idea. It leaves it more open.
I think that's the way I understood it.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Rush.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe this board should reconsider this motion in its entirety and make a motion to move this forward to next week. However, giving the administrator and the board chairman the opportunity to interview commissioners for some input, and maybe at next week's meeting or the following executive meeting, where we do have a bit more committee setting, and open it up for discussion at that point. I think we're moving a little bit too fast. I really don't think we know what we want at this point. I think there needs to be a lot more discussion. And I think it would just simply be better for the board to have the 2 heads here at the table sit down, interview commissioners, and then maybe open a discussion in the next committee meeting setting for further conversation from the board. I think that will serve us well.
Commissioner.
Okay. I apologize, I didn't say that we needed a task force tomorrow. I just threw that out there, it's just an idea, more or less exploring. And, you know, we're missing a point here that maybe after today's meeting, let's see what kind of response we get from the public. Maybe they don't want one. I think we need to sit back and we can, after they read the enterprise or whatever, and watch the meeting, hopefully we're gonna get some input from the outside. Then we can you know, we don't have to make a decision today for a task force. We're fishing for ideas how to get this thing to move forward.
Commissioner West.
I like Commissioner Rushton's idea, and I don't know that there's time between now and next Tuesday to move this forward. I think you said, or maybe in February. I'd be very comfortable if you let me withdraw my motion to say, let's just move it forward to February and ask the chair and the administrator to talk to us and come back with some ideas. I'm very comfortable with that.
I do believe we have to have a vote to withdraw that motion.
Well, yeah, this second, no, there is not an amendment at this time.
It was not supported, so there's no amendment.
I believe that he is dismissing his original motion.
Yes.
So
it's up to the second if they want to.
No.
No?
No, there has to be a motion for that to be dismissed off the floor. It has to be voted.
Your board rules, the chairman makes a decision, and any commissioner can object to that decision.
Our standard procedure is if someone removes the motion and the second is okay with it, then it's removed. So that would be, I mean, I'm not sure who was it, when that, Commissioner
Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson, is that okay with you if he removes it?
Yeah.
So then we'll do that, we'll try to put it together, for February, and then we'll move on from here.
And if I may say, I want to thank my fellow board members for allowing us to look at this issue and not shove something through it. Because I do think it's an important issue for our community, for ourselves, and for the people that work here in this building. So, thank you.
Okay, so then that brings us to the board rules of order and procedures.
Yeah, let me just review this. We made the changes. We hope we made the changes that all you suggested last week. And so when I refer to page, it's a page in the board packet. So you start at page 12 of the board packet. Changes were made in the December meeting based on your discussion last week. So those meetings were changed from the second and third to the first and second meeting of December. On page 17 of the board package, and we implemented this morning, simply changed where communications, proclamations, and presentations. We used to have those at the very beginning of the meeting. We have now that after public comment, and we get that this morning. Same changes on page 18 for the November session. And then on page 21, the resolutions, we took.
That's page 19, we did make 2 changes.
Page 19 on this one?
Yeah, just on the other word for each.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. I missed that one. On page 19. The clerk's always on top of things.
I watch it.
Always.
She watches me constantly.
So may I ask a question there? The next one, you just touched on it. When I read that,
21?
at page 21, you've got, and in this excludes all internal financial resolutions.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that
That's
that's
checked out.
exactly what you want.
Yeah, we actually met together.
Okay, so it's outside resolutions.
Yeah.
We can, no problem with understanding that they're financial.
So
resolutions.
everything with the exception of internal, and it has to be financial. So let's just say a department head wants to bring something up that's not financial, that would not fall under this
Right,
exclusion strictly as financial.
okay.
And I believe that's changes that recommended.
24.
One more?
Yeah.
Oh, page 24, yes. Change Robert's rules to the 12th edition versus what was in here. They're both keep an eye on me.
I have to say that edition, 12th edition is pretty lengthy. It's pretty complex.
So last week you made the motion with the modifications, you're just following up those modifications. So you don't need to take any actions.
Yeah, I think we already have approved
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And the thing about resolutions came into effect today, actually, because of, there was a recommendation for late edition resolution that we didn't do because of that. So that change has already affected us.
And this is ongoing, so at any time you can make modifications. It's not just at the first meeting of the year, at any time you have the right to make modifications. And you have done that sometimes throughout the year.
And we, at any time we can suspend our rules and just, go wing it as we go along. We always, this board always has that choice. Okay. So then that brings us to information technology.
Is Ron joining us?
He's just walked by.
Okay, I think he's coming. It's a slight delay from the video to the actual meeting, so when they watch it, it's a slight delay, so Ron should be on his way here.
In the meantime, I would recommend that the Board of Commissioners waive its policy on bid requirements and approve the quote from Riemann for the renewal of the Cuda Essentials Maintenance Agreement, funds to come from Data Processing Fund 636.
Any questions?
Ron, how is this different from last year's contract?
It's the same.
It's exactly the same.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And
6,000.
you're comfortable with this company and this, and the support that
Yes.
we get from the company?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there any other companies out there on the horizon that we may be looking at in the future?
Well, again, this is one of the pieces of software that is supported by our safety net, our third-party contractor. So it is basically what they recommend and what they support as well. So again, in following with their recommendations, which I think is wise, if they're acting as backup for me. So, I mean, there are other ones, yes, but this is a very popular one, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And that brings us to potential update renewal of the dual authentication.
No, we didn't vote on that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vote, yeah.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, I'm sorry. And we have a potential update renewal of dual authentication subscription.
This software is used for anyone who is outside our facility, who needs access to our network for CJIS or criminal justice information. The state police require us to have what's called dual authentication. When a person logs into the computer, what happens is this software will ping their cell phone or their tabletop phone with a message that says, was this you trying to get into the system? So it's a secondary authentication method. It's used right now by our townships when they get into our tax system. It's used by our law enforcement when they get into the new 911 system. And the biggest thing, the reason that the budget is not what the contract amount is going to be is they have decided that the 911 system should be available to all our fire departments and emergency personnel. So in order to expand that to those people, they all would have to have a license for this software. So basically, when I put the budget together, I was not considering that they would be utilizing it. So the number of licenses is the reason the budget is higher.
Mr. Rick.
Why does the fire department need to have this access?
That'd be a good question, I think, for Matt. They've been in discussion, I think, at the fire chief's meeting and to get access to incidents.
Yeah, I was a little curious in regards to that. And the other concern that I have is, well, let me ask you the question. Historically, they have not had this access, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And now they are the ones that are requesting this?
I think it is, yeah. I'm not privy to all the conversations.
And my question is, if those individual fire departments are requesting this, why are we not asking those townships to pay for those additional licensings? They pay for their own licensing on every other thing for their fire departments. Why do we as a county have to absorb the cost?
We may not have to absorb the cost, but it would have to be on our license. And we could then maybe bill them back for their usage.
Well, I think from my position, before we allow this to move forward, I think we should find out about that.
Okay. What I'd like to do with this is I have gotten 2 quotes from them. One is just the renewal of our existing volume licenses, which is, I think it was 3,600. That's what this, 3,600. I did put in for 54, which would be the additional amount for the fire departments, but I don't propose that we buy them yet until they start using it. So I just kind of want to get approval. So if you want to just approve the 3,600 and then explore the additional licenses at a later point, that would be okay.
I think it would be prudent for this board to renew, as we have always for the 100 licenses, and explore that, because like I said, I don't know that is our responsibility, and I don't know if they can get that same information by using another resource. You know, fire department, call up here at the sheriff's department and request the information.
We do email it to them right now, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And if they want that added benefit, then I think that they should be looking at sharing the cost with us.
Okay, then I guess I would propose that if we could get the $3,600 approved for the existing licenses, I can move that forward and then we can discuss with the fire chiefs.
So I will go ahead and make, recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve $3,600 to renew the Duo, to renew the subscription to Duo for the dual office.
Authentication.
Thank you, software, and those funds to come from 636.
Or,
Commissioner Lott.
yes, thank you. Deborah brought up exactly what I was going to say. Why, I guess I am curious as to why they did that get into our CAD system.
Yes, the CAD system.
Why, when, why?
Well,
And then also, those, that would need to be billed back, I believe, to the fire departments. Because we're already very generous when it comes to our radio system.
Yeah. Yeah, the big issue I had with it too was that
Okay.
these license, go ahead.
No, go finish that, and I have
Okay.
one more question.
Okay. So basically that if for a larger department who may want more licenses too than a smaller department who only needs one for the chief and the, you know, that I saw to kind of be an inequality as well. So.
And then you budgeted 3,000, but it was 36.
Yeah, that was, again, that was because of the law enforcement side of it. Again, when I did the budget, we weren't looking at providing this for even for the law enforcement officers. Now they have it on their phone. Okay, so that's, again, it's the number of licenses that put me over my budget.
Okay.
So, yep.
Commissioner Soto.
Ron, was there any price break?
Any what, pardon?
Is there any price break in having the local entities purchase through you, or is it?
No, it's the same. They have to purchase through us because we hold the license that sits on our server. But there's no difference in whether.
The number of licenses you request at one time, which is really what I should have asked.
Yeah, no.
Doesn't make sense.
There's no volume discount. It's a flat fee per license, so.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Before you vote on it, can I just, I'm pretty sure I got what Commissioner Rushton said, but I just would like to repeat it if I could. Is that okay? Motion by Rushton to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the $3,600 to renew the subscription to Duo for dual authentication software. Funds to come from fund number 636. I just removed a couple words from what was written.
Yeah. My next question in regards to that is you budgeted $3,000 for that. So where's that extra $600 coming from?
I do budget for some overage and underages, if you will. I have some miscellaneous, there's enough money in that line item to cover it
So it's
through the end of the
out
year.
that fund entirely.
It still will, yeah, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a real quick one, Ron. It's that we're talking $1,800 difference between what you initially recommended and where we're settling. Between now and next Tuesday, I just asked you and Chet to review that and make sure that that's not going to negatively impact our township fire department.
Well, they're not really ready to go yet. So, I mean, I was looking to get approval for the funds, but not to purchase it until they're ready to go live. Because there's no sense in having the licenses, paying for them, and them not using them.
Either Matt or I will give an update. We'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll provide you an update. And as Ron said, this is not time sensitive.
No, it's not.
We're not ready to
Yeah.
start.
The renewal is time sensitive for the existing, but not for the additional, so.
Any other questions or statements?
I'm not sure if I heard the answer or if the question was asked. They can be added during the course of the subscription
That's
anytime
correct.
during the year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
wanted to make sure that they had opportunity.
They do, yep, anytime, yep.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, and that brings us to building and safety.
Yeah, several issues. Let me start first with the personnel, and then I'll let Amber come here and do the rest. Last month, you applied a restructuring of the Register of Deeds office with some changes there due to the election of new Register of Deeds. So that job was posted. And as you remember, when there was a reduction in the staffing level at Register of Deeds, Wanda Couturier was the person with the least seniority. Her position was cut from full-time to half-time. And at the same time, we had an opening in buildings. And so Wanda took a transfer, has done an excellent job. We really appreciate all her efforts. And she fit in extremely well. But her background was in Register of Deeds office, and she had been working at a title company, and it was an opportunity for her to come back to her department. So we wish her best of luck. It worked out great for her, and we're thrilled to have her back there. And we miss her in building, but it's time to go forward, and we congratulate Wanda for her work that she's done this past year. And now we're simply asking to fill that position. So that position has been budgeted, has been vacant. We are actually under the staffing level in buildings because of some other personnel issues there. But this time we're recommending simply to fill that vacancy created by Wanda accepting a job in Register of Deeds.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Just that it would be very great to have an additional person in there. We're sorry to see Wanda go, but understand completely her reasons for leaving.
Commissioner Solicitor.
I would recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to allow the Building Safety Department to fill the vacant secretarial position.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. And then the rumors are true. This is not Paul Hunter sitting here. As we speak, I believe Paul is having knee surgery replacement. And so he's out for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. But Amber has been part of the discussion on next 2 items, and this has gone through our committee. Help me out, Mr. Bonnet, we met in, was it November, I believe? November, to try to tweak some issues. As you know, we had a long contentious case that hopefully may be done with a resident of Northport. But during that process, we found a couple of things here that just need to be adjustment. So Amber went with Paul and myself and one of the inspectors to the committee that's comprised of Mr. Bunnick and that's right. I think it was, yeah, thank you. So, and they recommended unanimously we make these changes. So we'll start with the late fees. And we want to just give an overview to the rest of the commissioners.
The intention of the late fees is for people that have started their construction projects without permits. When people do that, a lot of times they just did not realize they needed a permit, so then it could be quickly resolved. There are also instances where it's not. It requires then additional paperwork on our end, additional inspections. It adds a lot of extra work for our department. So we're looking for some support financially to cover that cost.
Yeah, this is not to, it was an honest mistake. If they're a little slow, we've been very flexible. On an annual basis, this will be implemented 5% of the time, maybe.
Possibly even less.
Yeah, but occasionally we have a certain contractor or individual that just refuses to get permits. And we remind them, and remind them, and remind them, and remind them, and they just don't follow through. So it's very rare. Yeah, that's what we talked about. I think there's only 2 or 3 cases total that we've had this problem with. But in the event that there is an issue, this will allow us to charge a fee. We did check. Most counties have this type of process in place. It's not used on a regular basis, nor are we saying because you're a day late with a permit, we're going to fine you. But for those rare cases that the people just are not cooperative, we like to have some type of reinforcement. Chairman Bunny, if you were part of that meeting, I don't know if you want to add anything. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know that in other counties that I've had to pay if we were late or on their schedule, they actually have late fees. So I didn't see, and I thought that it gives them a little bit of of compensation for the extra work that has to be done when someone just doesn't do it, the extra times the commissioner or the inspectors have to go out just for this, to deal with it. Mr. Rush.
Is this the first time we're imposing late fees?
Yes.
Okay. And is it not true that we here in Leelanau County have tried to simplify that process for those that are in the industry and are familiar with, you know, permit requirements?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Okay, now, when you look at the homeowner who is looking to do a DIY project, do-it-yourself project, a lot of times those people, they may have an idea that they need to get some sort of a permit, but they're not sure. And maybe they start the process ahead of the permit. How will those people be handled as far as these late fees are concerned?
So the intention of the late fee is also to leave it at the building official's discretion. So there's a little bit of a, you could say, petition process. It's not going to be charged to everybody because you're exactly right. There's going to be cases like that where you simply didn't know or you got too far ahead of yourself. I've got 5 of those myself I'm working with right now. And that's simply handled through communication. There's no additional fees there. We just call and ask for a status update.
I can appreciate that. I mean, the hardened professional in the industry certainly is aware of what the requirements are, you know, as a builder or, you know, in the terms that they know. I don't really have a problem with that. However, I'm a little bit concerned about the, you know, the homeowner who really doesn't know the ropes. And so I am happy to see that there is a little bit of discretion that would be allowed for those people. I know for myself, when I needed to use the services of building safety, they have always been very helpful, and they walk you right through the process. So I think you need to get that message out there that, you know, for those who don't know about the services that you provide, that, you know, you can walk them through the process just like you guys did for us when we had our project going. But anyway, are we needing a motion here to approve?
Yeah.
Late fees?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have something in here that's.
There's not an EDS.
So it'd be like
Just approve the resolution.
and the,
Yeah.
it's not really a resolution.
No, if you look at the wording that's in your board package 34, that was drafted by legal counsel, just approve the wording.
But you want to add an after the fact building permit fee policy. But we're adding the fee to the schedule,
Would be,
or if we just put the policy in place, it automatically goes to the schedule?
yeah, you would be adopting the after the fact building permit fee policy, and when you do that, it's all inclusive of what's on here. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
It sounds
Yes,
like it.
yeah.
Okay, as long as it ends up on the schedule.
I'm just wondering if the language,
That's been approved by our council.
okay, but what I'm wondering about, in the language, can it say a penalty up to $150?
Well, it has to be a straight amount, because we don't want to treat everyone, you know,
Okay.
someone, but if you read the language, the key word is, it says it may be applied. It doesn't say it has to, and if you read further on, it says, for individuals that knowingly and intentionally proceed. So yes, let's say it was you and you forgot the permit, or you're like, we're not gonna find those people. But every now and then, we have a contractor, and mostly our contractor, most homeowners simply don't know, and we work very flat. I can't think of a case where we had a homeowner that was doing it. It usually is a contractor. And that is also where, but if you look, it says it may be, and it has to be intentionally knowing that they're violating the procedure. So we warn them, we warn them, we warn them. Are we gonna get Mr. Hubble involved and file a case against them? Probably not. This would be the next step.
Yeah, okay, I think that's appropriate, personally.
So we're gonna make them.
So what, move to I would move to recommend to the board that we approve the after the fact building permit fee policy as presented.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
I want to comment, please, just a quick comment. I was also very reluctant on this. I understand the intention. I think that it's going to be okay. But what I didn't want to do is rock this boat. It's been very calm down in there in your department. So thank you very much. We had some really tough years with, every other call was contractors problems we were having, and it's calm right now. So I certainly don't want to go back to, I don't want unhappy contractors. I don't want unhappy citizens. So I think this will be fine. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Actually, most contractors would appreciate this because they don't want to be in competition with peers that are not following procedure and so forth. So the feedback I'm getting from contractors actually appreciate this. And actually, some of them brought them up that we should have a policy in place for those small group of people that choose not to follow the guidelines.
Appreciate that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next process is a simple one. The process to appeal is dictated by state law. However, there is no deadline date. Units of government have the ability to add deadline dates to the process. Some do, some have not. Fortunately, we've never had this problem because we've had only 2 cases since I've been here. And so it's very rare. But we did have a situation this summer, as all of you know, in a case where there was an appeal that was several years after the fact. And the person pointed out that our policies do not have a deadline date. So we are recommending, if you look at the first line, the only changes in this entire policy, it is a state procedure, is that appeals must be made within 90 days of the decision. So if an inspector makes a decision, that person has 90 days, which we think is more than fair. Usually if there's an issue, it's within the first week or so that happens.
Is this a resolution?
No, I think it's just changing the procedural rules here. These are the Leelanau County Construction Board of Appeals procedural rules.
So
Commissioner Water?
would you like a motion to approve the Leelanau County Construction Board of Appeals procedural rules as amended? Okay.
Motion. So that's a motion I'll support.
Any questions or statements? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
I do want to acknowledge Amber why she's here, because during this appeal process, we had to go back through our records and find many documents, and it was quite a hardy task for Amber to go through that. But the legal counsel was very complimentary, and we were very successful. And hopefully those lawsuits are completed now, and we'll have to go forward. But we did find out this one minor issue, that there was no deadline date for the appeal process.
Very good.
So thank you, Amber.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Andrew,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
All right, and that brings us into the Leland Dam Authority, the dam gate assembly update.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Christensen, Mr. Poper online last month, you asked me to meet with them to review the process. So Mr. Popa and Mr. Christensen and I met twice in the last couple of weeks, which you have. And we did email you a revised EDS yesterday. Made copies of it because the numbers weren't quite right. But summary, I'll just summarize it, and then Mr. Popa and Mr. Christensen can ask. I met with them, and I kind of asked them that I would play the devil's advocate on why this did not go out for bids, or why we should proceed on going for the bids. First of all, let me back up. There's no question the work has to take place. As you know, there was a safety inspection that occurred, I believe, in 2019. Some of the issues we addressed last year, and this is a part of that. So we do have to move forward. The safety inspector gave us flexibility in terms of getting it done as long as there's progress being made. And so the dam authority did review the options, hired an engineer, which all of you approved, came up with a plan. And the question was whether it's should go out for bids or not. At one point, the dam authority said they wanted to go out for bids, and then had a change of mind based on discussion with the contractor, and I believe with the engineer, and therefore, as you look on your memo, that's on page 38 from Mr. Christensen and Mr. Polpa, they outline the 5 reasons why they believe it should not go out for bids. Probably the biggest thing in my mind is that this is a safety issue, should be done sooner versus later. If we were out to go out to bids, it would take probably 2 months to get a recommendation back to us. This is a slow time for them. The engineer and the contractor say they can start the work as soon as the board approves it. So work can be done and probably be completed before we go out for bids, before we'd even get the bids back and make a recommendation to the board. So I did drill Mr. Polk and Mr. Christensen at length there about the process, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page on that. I think there were some lessons learned by everyone. And I also asked Mr. Polk and Mr. Christensen on the bottom, and you don't have to deal with it today, but I know there was some confusion last month about how much money do they need in 2021. So this is on your memo, on the bottom part, you see that there's a proposed budget for 2021 that at this point, we're not asking to make any changes at this point. It strictly is with the motion, but I thought you should know the big picture on what the budget will be for this year going forward. And so therefore, at this time, Mr. Polk and Mr. Christensen are on the Zoom here and can answer any of your questions, but they are recommending, and I guess I understand their logic, why at this point, they feel that it should not go out for bids for a safety perspective. Mr. Polk, Mr. Christian, do you want anything else?
You did a fine job.
Thank you. I just want to summarize what our discussion was.
What? Motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to waive the board policy on bid requirements and accept the quote from Fisher Contracting to perform the fabrication and installation of the gate lockout assembly for the Leelanau Dam at a cost not to exceed $49,100. Funds to come from Fund 805.
Wait a second. What did you say? How much did you say?
40,000.
Yes, 49,000. No, it's supposed to, that's not the revised one.
Yes, it is.
Oh, there's a revised one?
Oh.
4900 is what's
$40,000.
I was, the revised one I passed, that was sent out to you yesterday, and you have copies. It's 40,900.
Can I revise it to 40,900 then? Good.
Support.
Here it is.
Commissioner Rush.
Michelle, what fund is 805?
That's the Leland Dam Fund.
Okay, and where's that money coming from? General?
Well, I don't know where the extra money's gonna come from. That's not part of this motion.
I had asked for a second motion because you can't approve this until you approve that the general fund's gonna supplement this. So when it was proposed in December, it's 2 motions. 1, not to exceed because you're avoiding bid policy. And number 2, if you do the bid policy, you have to have that you're gonna support it from the general fund.
So we could come back next week with a specific, you could help us draft the motion for the financial.
Yeah,
part of
that's
it.
what you want to come from, John.
So if you pass this one, we can put the other motion in for next week.
Commissioner Law.
I think I'm going probably where Deborah was going, but I'm going to say it again, I've got some real concerns with the additional dollars always for the dam. I mean, every time we turn around, well, we need another 10,000, we need another 10,000, we need another 10,000. And I'm trying to quickly go back to where you said the budget is in here. But I guess my statement would be, I think we made an error in not doing the assessment district on the lake at some portion, 50-50 or 60-40, where even the county picked up the 60%. That's my concern. We heard this morning about drain districts. Those people living within those districts will pay for that 100%. And yet we just continue to pay everything for the dam, and I object to that.
Any other comment? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that will move forward then to next week with the, you bring the financials report.
I'll second motion. Chairman Bonick, was that seconded by Commissioner Wessel?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so then I thank you, Steve and John. We appreciate that. And that would bring us then to the clerk and MERS. We have an extra statement here, another extra sheet.
Basically, requesting that you just move this to next week.
Right. Commissioner Rush.
I would recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners forward the MERS defined benefit plan adoption agreement addendums to the regular session on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. I do believe our clerk is looking to clarify some language on the forms, and we may have, I don't think there's any urgency with the reporting on this form, and this may not be resolved for the next meeting, but let's see if she can get some answers and bring that to us next week or in February.
If we have a support of that.
Yes. Commissioner Wessel.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
So then that brings us then to the administration and the temporary emergency leave policy.
Yeah.
recommendation.
Excuse me,
Yes. Okay,
just a quick stretch.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay,
I didn't know already.
What?
I didn't realize we're talking about this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. So she said if we have to, we can start without her. I thought, we don't know how long she'll be, so I thought we would. I don't know that there's anything that's critical that she missed. Oh, okay, good.
My turn, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, so the administrator's up, back in order here, back in session.
All right, this next topic is one that I think most units of government will be dealing with this month. And that is with the COVID Act, with the Federal CARES Act. I'll just give a brief overview. Back in the spring, as you know, we shut down on March 17th with the first order. In April, the federal government passed part of the CARES Act, basically a summer that employees can get up to 10 days due to COVID-related issues, exposures, sickness, and so forth. Those days expired December 31st. Here at the county, I think I put you in my report, we obviously abide by that. We had 19 employees that were eligible to take some time off due to either testing positive for COVID or being direct exposure. Of our employees, only 4 people took the entire 10-day maximum. And I think people are very honest with that. Those days expired December 31st. The challenges that we're having in other counties, but I'll be here, I'll talk specifically here. Since January 1st, we have 3 employees that have positive tested. 1 is back to work, 2 are still out, and we've got several that were directly exposed. In May, you approved the Leelanau County COVID-19 Preparation Response Plan that basically mandates that employees every day have to check in and fill out a health and wellness survey that we have been doing since then. And if they have been directly exposed or if they have tested positive for COVID or COVID symptoms, they are required to stay home, not to come to work. The challenge we have now is as of December 31st, those days have expired. So what do we do with employees now that have tested positive or have direct exposure? Without a policy in place, those people have to use their vacation or personal days. And the challenge with that is, I'm not saying anyone will do this, but I've already had some questions that people that may be less than honest if they have to take their vacation time and they have been directly exposed, who may have plans. And I don't want anyone to come to work who have been directly exposed and potentially pass it on to other people. But if they're being forced to take vacation or personal days, they may be less than honest and not say that they have been exposed. I'm not saying it's going to happen here. That has been an issue. I was on 2 conference calls with county administrators last week about this. What you have is a proposed policy that was drafted with the assistance of Matt Norford from legal counsel that he has recommended to other units of government and counties. And basically, it's an extension through March 31st for people that have either tested positive for COVID or have direct exposure. I won't go through the whole policy because you have copies of it there, but to allow them to not come to work and not jeopardize their vacation or personal days. One commissioner asked how many days our employees get now. Depending on when you're hired, you get either 8 or 12 personal days, and depending on seniority, it's anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks, depending on how long you've been here and what labor contract that you're under. But the question is, what happens to the people from January 1st going forward? Without a policy, then they will have to take vacation or personal days or not get paid.
I think the important part of that is no cost to be.
Yeah, outside of, yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sheriff Money asked a question, will this cost anything? Obviously, if it's a law enforcement deputy or 911 dispatcher, there may be some cost, because if those employees are not at work, we would not always, sometimes have to follow up and fill those shifts, which could cause overtime. In this building, for example, we don't, if someone's here, we don't have, first of all, we don't have any subs, but we do not substitute people to come in and work for them. So there'd be virtually no cost for that. Obviously, there's a lack of production work that's being taken place if they're not here, but in terms of actual physical cost, outside of the dispatchers and the deputies, I don't think there'll be a financial impact on the county.
Mr. Long.
if I missed something, I apologize, because I was trying to bring this up. So it is up to 10 days.
Yes.
Okay, because I heard yesterday that Grand Traverse County is considering 5 days.
I don't.
Based on, well, it seemed illogical, based on, I believe, if I understood right, that the 10 days sometimes can be, by the time they can tell their employer, maybe Monday morning, a couple days may have passed.
Yes.
And that you would have a weekend in there.
Yeah. It's, let's say you were exposed and you tested positive. Assuming you recovered, it's 14 days of being quarantined. So 14 days, calendar days, usually equates 10 days or 2 weeks. That's where the 10 days came from. And the policy says up to 10
And
days.
that's with a positive test, but a direct exposure, are you using 2 week, 14 days for a direct exposure?
Or
10 days?
Well, I talked to Lisa Peacock about that. The health department says 10 days, the state health department says 14 days.
So solid report.
Yeah. So that's where we're up to 10 days. Now, if you look last
So you
year.
take out weekends then?
These are work days, these are work.
These are work.
For calendar,
days.
for counting number of days being exposed, it's calendar days, but it's 10 work days. Last year, for example, as I mentioned, we had 19 people that impacted. 4 took the 10 days maximum, the other people were anywhere from 2 to 8 days. It just varies on case to case by case. For example, with Christmas break, we had one employee that actually took vacation time. And that person only had to take 2 days because of the vacation time. They were not here in the building.
So, and it's only, oh, I'm sorry, if I heard, one time, it's up to 10 days for the year. So.
Through March 31st, because that's when the federal guidelines stop at this point. It could be extended, but right now the recommendation is through March 31st, up to 10 days.
Commissioner Rush. A couple of questions for you, Chad, in regards to this. You have a potential exposure, and that person, is that person mandated to test?
No, they either, and that's a good question, and it has to be a direct exposure.
Okay.
They have to be either tested or be quarantined because for 14 days. And part of the problem with the policy is sometimes it's difficult to get in and get tested, get the results back.
Well, that's why I was asking the question. Are we mandating that they get tested if they have a direct exposure?
If you look at the policy, it talks about 3 days and 5 days and so forth, depending on when it occurs. Because I know firsthand, because I had to get tested over Christmas, and you have to wait several days from when the direct exposure is. And I'm not an expert on this, but they're recommending if, let's say Mr. Bunnick and I had lunch and he tested positive on a Monday, I was told not to go in and get tested till at least Thursday or Friday.
Okay, so there's a window.
Because you may not have symptoms.
Okay.
It's usually, most people get it, once again, it varies, within the 4th, 5th, or 6th day. So they're recommending that if you have a direct exposure, you wait at least 3-4 days before you get tested. Then it could take up to 3-4 days to get the results back.
Okay, that was my question.
So,
what's the timeline? You know, and so the health department requires if you've had a direct exposure to get tested, is that a yes or a no?
Either stay home to either be quarantined or be tested.
Okay.
And not to come back to work until you have the test results.
Okay.
That's a direct exposure. Now, let's say at the same time, Mr. Bunnick and I had lunch, he found out he was positive, told me, because I went to work and was working with Laurel, she would not have to quarantine, because that is not a direct exposure, unless I have symptoms. If I started exhibiting symptoms, then yes, but without that, if I did not test positive or I've got any symptoms, Laura would not have to quarantine.
Okay, so thank you for that. Now, if, well, we'll use you as an example. You were having lunch with Bunnick, he tested positive, you waited the 5 days. You did not show any COVID, okay. You're working with somebody else, they test, but you took the 5 days off from work, okay. Now you're working with somebody else and you have that contact and you need another 5 days or 7 days, how many times are we gonna, how many times does this allow that person to take 10 days because of
It's
exposure?
a maximum of 10 days total.
Each person?
Yeah, so it's not each case. So let's say, use an example, the first time I took 6 days.
Okay.
And there was a second time, and I was out for a week. I would only have 4 days left.
Okay, so at that point, then the employees would be required to stay home without pay, or they would be able to use their personal and or vacation time. So we're allowing 10 days for each employee.
That's the maximum, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wesson?
Need a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to recommend that we approve the leave extension policy as presented, dated through March 31.
Second.
Commissioner Wesson?
I would just like to say that our employees are very fortunate to have the opportunity to be paid for taking that time off, because there are people in the private sector that do not have that same opportunity. So we all do care about the people that work for our county. Unfortunately, we cannot expand the same opportunities to all of the other people who live in our county. So I just want to remind the people that do work here in this building are very fortunate.
Any other questions or statements? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
And if I might, I
Yes.
think Deborah brought up a very good point, because I have heard from people who have had to be home without pay, and it's been very harmful to them. But also, this is backed up by, since I sit on the negotiation team, I'll use my negotiation, a very generous sick and personal day policy. So they're also in very good, a very good place with sick days should a situation arise. So it's nice that they can save those for any other emergency down the road. It's a good thing.
So then that brings us into the NMRMA renewal.
Yeah, this is an annual occurrence on our board agenda where we renew the property and liability coverage. And you have a portion of the document in your packet. I want to put all 59 packages in the document, so you have a summary. But as you know, Mr. Hulk has come here on a regular basis, giving us some update and so forth. And the annual fees vary on how many cases we have. And fortunately, over the last decade, we've had very few cases here.
It's on page 57.
I recommend to the Board of Commissioners to waive the policy and bid requirements and approve the 2021 renewal for property and casualty insurance between Leelanau County and Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority in an amount not to exceed $226,299. Funds to come from, do I read that whole thing? 954.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that brings us then to the septic records
And
update.
Mr. Herman was, I just talked to him. If you check your emails, I think he sent you a PDF just a few minutes ago with that. I thought it was coming in here. I'll go find it here. He's coming here shortly. So just as a brief update, as you remember in November, there was a dialogue about septic and records and so forth. As you know, you pay to have those records digitized. And then Mr. Johnson, the health department, called in, talked about records. And then we talked about whether we could release. The first step would be to see if we could identify which part of the county. So I talked to Rob Herman, and Rob and I and Eric Johnson had these discussions, and then Rob took the ball with has developed a map, which I believe all of you were emailed.
I just sent it to you guys, yep.
And so right now we have the ability, all Rob has done is taken those records, put them on a digital map.
Mhm.
So right now, if anyone wants to know whether 911 Hewitt Street, Cedar has a septic file on record, we can go and say yes or no. We don't have the data what's in that file, that'd be extensive more work.
Mhm.
So I asked Rob just to stop at this point. Thank you, Rob, for your efforts.
Yeah, of
Bring
course.
us up to board and see if you wish to proceed further. Rob can talk what the options are going forward. So Rob, go ahead.
Okay.
Give us a background, what you had to do to get to this point.
Okay, so basically, since the last meeting, Chet tasked me with getting the records mapped, and I did. I talked to Eric Johnson. He sent me a spreadsheet of parcel ID numbers.
Rob, could you?
Okay, sorry. So Mr. Johnson sent me his list of properties that have records, but they're not just well and septic. They're also, if somebody built some kind of house extension or a deck or, whatever. He's working on getting me a list right now of the age of the records so we could figure out well and septic date of construction. I spoke with him this morning and he was working on it, and he's planning to get me something within a few weeks, hopefully. So if we want to go that route, we can do something a little bit more deeper as far as some of the record data. But currently I just have the list of parcel ID numbers.
Mr. Allen.
So are you considering doing a pilot with a specific area like we discussed? With
That'd be up
additional-
to, yeah, I don't want to put Rob in an awkward position because he has a full-time job.
I know.
We are looking for input, how you wish to proceed further. What I asked Rob to do is do what he did so far, but there would be a substantial amount of man hours involved going forward. So I asked him not to go any further unless all of you had some directions for us, because we obviously want Rob to continue doing his regular duties and responsibilities and with the townships and so forth. But I guess we're looking for guidance from you as a board, how you wish to proceed. We were talking, this would be a great first step. So now you can look, or anyone can look and see which address. Right now, people can, if Rob releases this public, can look and see, are there records on file for their address?
Right.
Those records that may be on file are not part of this system yet. That would be a pretty substantial effort to have that done, but we don't want to do that unless you give us direction if you want to go to the next level.
Commissioner Lott.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. One is, what is the black dotted line around Lake Leelanau South?
That is just like a general township boundary line, just to show
Okay,
where the township lines are.
okay, all right, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Let's see. So North Lake is all north of Lake Leelanau.
Right.
In Leelanau.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Yep.
Another question, well, okay, I do want to point out, because a lot of the white is vacant land.
Right.
That's nothing to be alarmed about.
Yep.
All right, so it would be, as Chad said, a lot of man hours if you were to take every single parcel and overlay.
Correct.
But if we took, say, every parcel within 200 feet of our inland lakes and our Great Lakes, any idea approximately how many residences or how much time, or should we, as a pilot project, I should back that up, just take one lake?
I think that would probably be ideal. There's 15,000 total records digitized here.
Yeah.
So if we focused on one lake, that might be a good starting point. I'm still not sure exactly what the health department can send me as far as, deeper data. But
Do one, I don't know which lake it is, but we did have, over the years, we all hear of like, well, I think there's a place here or here. I'm gonna do one of two things. The last complaint I heard was Carolyn Rettenbach said her neighbor, she thought had an issue, and I don't know what lake that is on, but that could possibly be a good lake to start. The other thing would be maybe talk to some of the haulers in the county and ask them, where do you think we should start? I really don't know if we want to start on something as big as, south Lake Leelanau, that's going to take in 4 townships.
Yep.
North would only take in 1. But just as a pilot project, I think we should, we don't have to do it right now either, right? Maybe we should get some more information and pick one. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I like the idea of starting with a smaller lake, just for your sake.
Thank you.
Carolyn Rettenbach's neighbor, that would be Big Glen, which is our biggest, it's one of the big ones. And so what do you suggest as a good way to choose a pilot, Ross? Or do you have any suggestions?
Well, I guess it depends on what we're trying to figure out, what we're trying to distinguish. I've gotten a couple calls from some lake associations wondering about wells and septics being polluted. So, we could look at one of the smaller lakes. I would probably have to speak with the health department to figure out what I can get from them first. There's just a lot of questions as far as what they can, get me right now and which direction we want to go with this in general.
That was kind of the issue that I was going to bring up, is you don't really know what records they have that they can get to you or what's in those records precisely. So to say, and then the other question I hear you asking us is what's your end goal? What is it you want to do with this information, to have it on? I mean, this is wonderful to see what you've done, but to have it on, what is the use of it? How are we going to use it?
Right.
All of the work that would go into it.
Right, because there's nothing here that's surprising. It's most of the county, residential and ag properties. So there's nothing too shocking here. It just, paints a picture that most of the county has a record on file.
Mr. Rush.
I was just going to say, in some of the areas, Cedar Lake in Elmwood Township, that particular lake, the parcels around that lake, I would venture to say that there's a large majority of those properties that are hooked up to the sewer. And I'm not sure which parcels around the county are actually hooked up to sewers. So I guess what I'm saying, I would eliminate Cedar Lake for that reason, because or maybe we would pick that because it would have a much smaller footprint, you might say, for a person to look at that lake. So which way do we want to go with that? Do we want to take on a huge project? Do we want to start with a small project? Do we want to look at who's on sewer, how many are on sewer, how many are on septic?
May I suggest something? Obviously, Rob needs to talk to the health department.
Sure.
I think it'd be hard for all of you to make a decision unless you know what's correct.
Right.
So may I suggest that maybe just move this forward? Between now and next Tuesday, Rob can talk to Mr. Johnson and see actually what records they have. And then Rob can kind of see, okay, this may be a good starting point or not. Because it's really hard for all of you to make a decision where to start. unless you have that piece of the puzzle. So Rob's missing a big piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And you're missing even a bigger piece of the puzzle because you don't know what to ask for, because you don't know what Rob can do at this point.
He did mention that he's available to speak today if we'd like to call him too. I'm not sure if.
I guess my question was, what would help the health department the most? You know, that's what I would ask. Commissioner Wesson.
Thank you for putting it together. What I think would be helpful is now we know where we have records, but we don't know where we have septic records. And we don't know where we have records about septic inspections. And if we could overlay where we have septic systems with one color, and then overlay where we have septic systems that have been inspected, and we have inspection records. That helps us get to the place where we know whether or not we have a large number of septic systems that haven't been inspected. I would also like us, when we look at this, is to talk to the septic folks and see if there's a way when they do an inspection, we can update our records so that over time we see if we're making progress on the number of systems that haven't been inspected voluntarily. And in the meantime, we could find a small lake and do a pilot. So I would like the health department to get back with us further and talk further about it.
This is really beneficial to me. I'm just looking at Little Traverse Lake and Lime Lake, and I had no idea how many persons were in those lakes. I wonder if Ty's on, Ty said exactly, kind of what we're looking for. But so if we were to take one of these little lakes, pick that, overlay it.
Yeah.
That's what we want to know. But what we're looking for is, do we have one home, or do we have 100 that we don't have any idea what's there? That's going to give us our first idea of what we want to have. We need to know an idea of we may have to do a second lake, I don't know, before we're done, but get an idea of percentages of what kind of, what is the problem we want to fix the problem. We just really don't know what the problem is. And by evidence that we do have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We do think we do, and we've heard we do. And we just need to know how big this problem is.
I want to thank Rob for all your work.
Oh, yeah.
I really
You're very welcome.
appreciate it, and Eric Johnson's concern. And so how do we do what
How about just
Chet
move
just
forward
said?
next week? Rob and I, Eric, will meet between now and next Tuesday, and we'll come up with options for you. Because really, we need Eric's input, because
Correct.
Rob himself can't come up with a plan, because he doesn't know. And you gotta remember, these are health department records, these are not our county records.
Right.
So Rob really has to work with the health department. So I would just suggest that you just move this forward next week. Rob and I will have a conference call with Mr. Johnson, and we'll come up with some options for you for next week. So at least you can make a decision based on, this is the facts, this is what the health department can do, this is what you can't do. I mean, you all have some good ideas of things that
Yeah.
could be done, but Rob can't say yes or no until he tells us what the health department has.
Right.
So I just want to add, to complete my statement, that I'm heartened that we are addressing our public health concerns with our septic and water. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move conversation on septic records update forward to next board meeting.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Health department, your funding, Mr. Little.
I think basically it's just, there may not be an issue here. I just think it's an opportunity based on comments that have been made to me, and not, I should say, by the health department. that, I'm sorry, I forget with the mask, I need to get right to the mic. That we have an opportunity via our administrator to just speak with Lisa Peacock and find out, is there an issue? And if there is, what would be needed, and then potentially, how might we address that? That's all, very simple.
Anything else on that?
I just would like to say that, the health department knows that when they have issues, they can always come to this board. Especially in a situation like this. So I would have thought that if they did have a financial crisis, I think the very first place they would have started would have been here.
If I may, I have had some communication with Lisa.
You have to
And
talk into the microphone.
I think I have had some communication with Lisa just in writing. And I think they're discussing this internally. I also want to say that I think our health department tries very carefully to be fair in what they do and to try to get by as best they can. I think they will be bringing this, since this board doesn't meet again until February, and we're in the midst of giving vaccinations, now, it seems prudent to just at least check and see if there's anything that they needed help with, rather than to wait until February and then pass it in March.
Yeah, I think in the update that letter that she sent, the update kind of mentioned that that might be there, so I can see where you get that from. All right, thank you for that. Then we'll move on to review of financials. Commissioner Locke.
I had a couple of quick questions. I saw Jen a minute ago. Okay, Michelle, on page 1 of claims and accounts, we had I'm just curious about this more than anything, because I've never heard of it, but under batteries plus Traverse City, a 3-volt battery?
Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of business.
What is it? I've just never heard of a 3-volt battery, so I was trying to.
It's a 3-volt lithium, maybe that's why, because it's a lithium.
And it's one battery?
That's $150 at $2.10 each.
That explains it. Okay. All right. Page 2. Page 2. I just had to appreciate it because I agree 100%. On the Cedar Hardware, we have a bill for electric recording. Great stuff. So I'm just. Thank you, Sarah. Great stuff.
Did you want to know what the great stuff was, or is that?
No, it is. I'm just agreeing that they have great stuff. Because Cedar Harbor, visit Cedar, they got great stuff.
That's the product name, so.
Now it's a great sense of humor. I appreciate her interjecting that. Under on page 6, we have Panic Auto Repair.
I can talk about that. It was on my update in December, Jerry's truck. The metal frame was rusted out. He was either get a new truck at some $40-some thousand or get it repaired. Jerry loves his truck. He says it can go on for many more years, but it had to be for safety purposes. He did go out and get, I think, 4 or 5 quotes. They range from a low Panic to about $8,000. But to plow it and so forth, he had to get it repaired quickly. He wants to keep that truck as long as he can. And it's motor-wise, it's in good shape. But the frame, I forgot what the actual part was, but the frame had to be.
Well, you talk about fenders and rocker panels and floorboards and corner caps or cab corners. But I just have a real problem to put $4,100 into an 07. You do that with your personal truck because you love your personal truck, but for the county to put that much into that old a truck, I don't know. I thought it was.
Well, the flip side is it's not on the road. He drives it from his house, it's half a mile away to here and plows in the road here. So it's not a vehicle that's used for trips or long distance things. It's just basically local and he repairs it. But he did get a quote. He got a new quote for a new truck with all the equipment he has on it and the plow, everything would be of $41,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's generally what we do. Where's that money coming out of?
His fund.
Not motor pool,
No, not
that's
motor pool.
taking it all out of buildings and grounds.
Yes.
I can follow up on that. How many miles on that truck?
I don't know, I can find out.
No, I can tell.
It's not,
It's on our invoice.
yeah,
Well, he doesn't drive it that, he does take it into
He
Traverse.
plows with it though.
he plows with it.
Plowing will rack up the miles.
Absolutely, and it's hard on the,
It's one of those, I'm not expert, the VA.
It's a 2,500.
so 4,000.
We can find out.
Isn't that below the authorization too?
In case of an emergency, I'm
But this
authorized.
wasn't an emergency.
Well, he couldn't drive the truck, couldn't plow. In case we had, if the frame broke, I'm not sure the exact part of it, but it was unsafe to drive.
Miles?
They didn't put it on there, they recorded
We
zero.
can find out what the mile is. I
Got
just
it in
don't
the
know.
office.
All right, well, I'm obviously, I'm not going to pull this out of claims and accounts. I'm just stating that I have a real problem with that. To wait until December and say, oh, now suddenly I have this emergency and I can't plow. I think we could have planned better than that. And I guess I just wouldn't have put that much money into that old truck for the county.
Commissioner Rice.
You know, I don't know what kind of a plow he's got on that truck. The 2,500 is a pretty heavy duty truck. Great for plowing. And to replace the 2,500, I think would be a lot more than $40,000.
The quote he gave me from, I think, Bill Marsh match was 41,800 or something like that.
Oh, well.
But it could be, I'm not sure that includes
my truck
everything.
next time.
Well, I'm not sure that includes
Yeah.
everything though. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing is, it's an automatic, and plowing's especially hard on an automatic, so the next thing is, if we're replacing the transmission in it and begin to nickel and dime.
Well, I guess the important thing for me is when you look at a heavy duty truck like that, to me, one of the most important things is, engine, drivetrain, that kind of thing. When we start having those kind of repairs, it's time to move on. But if his mileage is relatively low, I think the truck could probably last us several more years and, it would be worth the investment. But I think it's something that we need to watch going forward. I'm not real crazy that he put that kind of money in that year of a truck, but if we can get, 4 or 5 years out of the truck, then it was worth the investment.
Any other financial questions?
I have no more.
And now we move on to special reports. Any special reports? Then that would bring us then to public comment. Please call 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109 for any public comment. And at this time, we can do commissioner comments while we're waiting for phone calls. Are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Sotis Little.
And I'll speak into the mic.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of discussion lately about not making certain groups special. And that we as a board shouldn't be encouraging this. In fact, it was brought up today by Commissioner Lautner. I feel that there's a bit of irony here with regard to wearing a mask because some folks on this board feel that they shouldn't comply with wearing a mask because they are an elected official, implying they are special. And that's why they don't need to do the simple thing of wearing a mask. Or there are commissioners who are protecting their own health and have an exemption from their doctor to not wear a mask, as some of our employees do. but have chosen to attend the meetings in person and other meetings in the government center rather than via Zoom. And this troubles me. My husband is going to be undergoing a major surgery on February 1st. So given the opinions regarding mask wearing on this board, I will be attending future meetings for the next period of time via Zoom to ensure that I don't bring COVID home. However, in making that statement, I have to acknowledge that Laurel, Chet, Jen, they're all employees. They don't have that option, even though they all wear their mask. Michelle Crocker, an elected official who's dedicated to ensuring that what this board needs, she provides, attends these meetings, even though she has concern about being confined in this space where there's large droplets and small droplets being dispersed into the air for now, 4 hours, 5 hours at a time, and people aren't wearing masks. I am very pleased that 7 out of the 10 people in this room feel the responsibility to wear masks. And I hope the 3 commissioners who do not will reconsider the message that you are sending to our employees. And I won't bring this up again in commissioner comments at once.
Commissioner Wessel, you had your hand up before. Did you want to say?
I'll defer to Commissioner Rushton.
Commissioner Rushton.
I just wanted to point out that we all got the memo. That's number one. We all have the right to make a decision in that regard. When I come into the building, I wear a mask. When I step away from my desk, I wear my mask. However, during the course of the meeting, I do not wear my mask. It's very difficult for us to discern on several occasions what people are trying to say to us. I don't wear my mask during the session because I want people to hear what I'm saying. We early on implemented the partitions. We put partitions in for those who are sitting in the audience. I appreciate those who wear a mask, and that's your right, that's your choice. And as the memo informed us, if we were uncomfortable, we had the right to attend meetings via Zoom. So I just wanted to point out to you that just because we don't sit here and wear our masks every second of every hour during this board meeting doesn't mean that we don't consider the people that are working in the building. We do.
Thank you. Well, this is not about masks, it's about our decision not to have goals. One of my books I like reading to young kids is Alice in Wonderland. So I'm going to read a paragraph out of Alice in Wonderland. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. So long as I go somewhere, Alice added. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat, if you only walk long enough. We need goals to tell us where we're going. And in the absence of goals, we're going to be walking in all different sorts of directions. So I hope we revisit this in the near future and hope we can agree on some goals that all of us agree on. So that we're not saying, as long as we keep moving and keep talking, we're making progress. We all belong to the Michigan Association of Counties, and we all belong to the National Association of Counties. We pay a lot of money for our membership. We send people to Washington to the conference and to Michigan to the conferences. And those two associations say good board membership requires working toward collective goals. It's in their work, it's in their website, it's on in their books for commissioner professional development. So the absence of having goals doesn't make sense. So I'd ask you all to go home and read Alice in Wonderland. Thank you.
Commissioner Russell.
I read Alice in Wonderland years ago. So thank you for entertaining us for the moment. But I think you have a narrow view, I think, on what we were talking about when it came to goals. It's not that as we move forward, we will not have goals. I believe that, number one, we're not ready to agree on any goals. And most of the goals presented, like I said, are redundant. We have been working on every one of those goals that have been presented. I think what we are talking about is structuring in a different format than maybe what we have done historically, and opening up the door so that not only these goals will be reviewed throughout the year, but that we will be able to add goals as we move forward to see the need in the community. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner.
I appreciate there's plexiglass here. I think plexiglass is helpful when you have a short interaction with someone. I appreciate the fact that it's here. If you spend a significant amount of time with people, the droplets in the air have time to accumulate. I think it's about being respectful of each other. It's about being mindful of the health of the people who are forced to be with us. Wearing a mask is not just for me, it's for you. So I haven't made my final decision, but until I can be vaccinated, I am strongly considering attending future meetings on Zoom. Thank you.
Any other comments? So then we move on then to amendments and transfers. We don't have any, do we? So amendment be claims and accounts, Commissioner Locke.
I would recommend approval of claims and accounts, $70,823.84.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to post audit.
I would recommend approval of post audit, $1,710,300.82.
Support. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.